Chapter 958. 958 8 Battlefields. Lu Ming's lips curled into a cold smile. He knew that although the last totem pillar had a lot of luck, it wasn't too much. The last totem pillar gave him about 200,000 points of luck, which was the same as the one on the Sky Poison Island. The reason he had around 800,000 fate points was because he had killed more than a dozen of the Bloodblade continent's heaven's favorites. Among the geniuses of the Bloodblade continent, there were two who were equivalent to the top 10 on the list of top 1,000 talents. Each of them contributed more than 100,000 fate points. In addition to the others and the previous ones, Lu Ming had 800,000 fate points. However, Di Shen, Luo Tian, Wang Fenshen, and the others did not know that. They believed that the last totem pillar would definitely reward Lu Ming with a huge amount of luck value, which was why Lu Ming had such a huge amount of luck value. The others in the surroundings came to a sudden realization. I see. I was wondering how Lu Ming, this little bastard, could have obtained so much luck. It turns out that he took advantage of the situation and used despicable means to obtain it. The patriarch of the Wang clan sneered. What's the use of getting it like this? He won't be able to hold on to it in the battle of karmic luck. Countless people will be watching him, and his karmic luck will still be stolen. The patriarch of the Jiang family sneered. As expected, many pairs of eyes on the fighting ring were staring at Lu Ming with a burning desire. The top 10, 20, and even 30 on the list of top 1,000 talents, as well as the newly risen talents and the talents of the heavenly Demon Valley, were all looking at Lu Ming with burning eyes. It was as if Lu Ming was a big piece of fat meat that everyone could not wait to take a bite of. 800,000 points of luck. As long as he defeated or even killed Lu Ming, how many points of luck would he get? Their hearts were beating fast. The Divine Emperor, AO2, and the others also had a lot of luck, but none of them dared to have any ideas. Wasn't it courting death to have designs on the Emperor God and the others? However, Lu Ming had only obtained so much luck value by relying on luck and treasures. If that was not a fat piece of meat, what was it? Only a few of them had serious looks on their faces. For example, Brother Litian and Nangong Bo. They had all fought with Lu Ming before and knew how powerful he was. This was especially true for Nangong Bo. Even he was defeated by Lu Ming. After that, it had been nearly half a year. Lu Ming must have become stronger. This piece of fat meat might not be delicious. However, he did not spread the news that Nangong Bo had lost to Lu Ming back then. Almost no one knew about it. Therefore, only a few people knew about Lu Ming's combat strength, except for those from the Talisman Amulet sect. Many people from the Talisman sect sneered. They had seen Lu Ming's powerful combat strength. He had easily killed a few of the Bloodblade continent's geniuses who were comparable to the top 10 on the list of top 1,000 talents. Lu Ming was not a piece of fat meat, but a knife that could kill. She wondered what kind of expressions they would have when they saw Lu Ming's combat ability later on. Many Talisman sect disciples revealed looks of anticipation. However, they still had some worries. Although Lu Ming was strong, he would be in great danger if he were to fight against Di Shen, AO2, and Shui Jianyi. After Lu Ming stepped on it, there was no one else behind him. The people who were qualified to participate in the battle for Providence had also come out. There were about 1,000 people who could turn into pythons. There were about 300 people who had the fate to turn into flood dragons. There were only about 60 people whose fate had transformed into a dragon. The 60 people included the sovereigns of the Sky Demon Valley and the newly rising ones. Therefore, only the top 30 or so on the list of top 1,000 talents could reach this level. Of course, there were exceptions. Some of the lower-ranked ones managed to reach it, while some of the top 30 didn't. Buzz. At this moment, the fighting ring shook slightly and glowed. The battle platform is about to turn into a battlefield. Let's go to the stands first. Someone shouted and flew towards the surrounding stands. The paragons on the fighting ring flashed and flew to the other fighting rings, landing in their respective areas. In an instant, there was not a single person left on the fighting ring. Buzz. The fighting ring glowed, and suddenly 8 bubble-like semicircular light shields emerged, dividing the entire fighting ring into 8 parts. Within the light barrier, mountains and rivers slowly appeared, as if it was evolving into a world. This was something that everyone was already clear about. In a moment, the fighting ring would be divided into 8 different areas, forming 8 battlefields. All the young men who had the luck of turning into a python or above would be automatically divided into 8 groups and enter 8 battlefields to compete. As long as one defeated their opponent, they would be able to obtain 50% of the opponent's fate. The defeated person would be eliminated and teleported out. In the end, they would be able to retain 50% of their fate. And once they killed their opponent, they would be able to obtain all of the other party's luck. However, the opponent could also admit defeat, but once he admitted defeat, he would lose 90% of his fate, and only 10% could be kept. It could be said that those who were weak were destined to have their luck stolen by those who were stronger. But it wasn't completely without life. The battle for Providence would last for an hour. As long as one could last for an hour, they would be able to keep all of their Providence after the battle for Providence ended. In the end, only the person with the strongest fate energy in each battlefield could advance. In the final 8 battlefields, the 8 people with the strongest fate would fight for the other side's fate. That was why so many people were staring at Lu Ming with burning eyes. In their eyes, Lu Ming was a piece of fat meat. Everyone watched quietly. It would take some time for the battlefield to evolve. At this time, Lu Ming quietly came to Bai Shijin's side. "Senior White, this junior has a matter that I would like to ask for your help with." Lu Ming sent a voice transmission to Bai Shijin. "What is it? Just say it." Bai Shijin also sent a message to Lu Ming. "In the Battle of Providence, I obtained a treasure called the Mountain and River Diagram," the elder said. Lu Ming sent a voice transmission to Bai Shijin. After he finished speaking, the mountain and river painting scroll appeared in his hands and he handed it to Bai Shijin. "There's actually such a wonderful treasure. Don't worry, I'll definitely do it for you. It won't take much time," he said. Bai Shijin took the mountain and river diagram and retreated silently. Then, in a flash, he disappeared into the teleportation vortex and left this place without anyone noticing. At this moment, everyone's attention was on the fighting ring below. Time slowly passed. A few minutes later, the area covered by the 8 light shields was completed, forming 8 worlds. 8 different worlds. There were mountains and forests, deserts, rocks, swamps. Each of the 8 light shields had a diameter of about 10 miles. Therefore, from the outside, the mountains and forests were very small, as if they were mini. However, many people knew that this was a battlefield that spanned 100,000 li. Each battlefield was 100,000 miles wide. Buzz. The light barrier glowed as the battlefield was completed. On the light barrier of each battlefield, a number appeared. They were 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 8, representing 8 battlefields. At that moment, beams of light shot out from the 8 battlefields and landed on the young people who were going to participate in the battle for Providence. Then, a number appeared above everyone's head. Chapter 959. 959 Lu Ming is fat meat. A number appeared above everyone's head, representing which battlefield they were going to enter. The number 8 appeared above Lu Ming's head, which meant that Lu Ming was going to enter the 8th battlefield. Lu Ming's eyes swept across the room and he noticed that some of the talisman amulet sect disciples also had 8 characters. Bai Chishue was also number 8. Fatty was number 2, Wan Tingting was number 3, and Huanzhen was number 4. Haha, Lu Ming, you're actually at number 8 too. And that chick. Suddenly, an excited laugh was heard. Lu Ming looked in the direction of the sound and realized that it was Luo Tian who was laughing. Number 8 also appeared above his head. He looked at Lu Ming and Bai Chishue with a burning gaze. Other than that, many other talents who had been assigned to number 8 were also looking at Lu Ming and Bai Chishue with burning eyes. Fuck, Luo Tian's luck is unbelievable. He's actually assigned to the same battlefield as Lu Ming and that chick. These 2 people are clearly fat meat and are giving away their luck. That's right. Luo Tian is so lucky. The point is, there are no experts on the 8th battlefield. Look, The Divine Emperor and the others are not on the 8th battlefield. In the 8th battlefield, only one genius from the Sky Demon Valley can compete with Luo Tian. There are no other strong masters. Luo Tian is so lucky. I'm so envious. All the paragons in the surroundings revealed expressions of envy, jealousy, and hatred. Lu Ming sneered. He glanced around and realized that Di Shen was assigned number 1, AO2 was number 7, Bloodsword number 1 and 3, Wang Fenshen was number 2. Those who were stronger than Luo Tian were not even on the 8th battlefield. At that moment, Luo Tian was so excited that he wanted to roar at the sky. Luck, he was too lucky. Not only was he assigned to the same battlefield as Lu Ming, but the more powerful paragons were not assigned to the 8th battlefield. His luck was simply heaven-defying. He looked at Lu Ming with a cold, murderous look and a burning greed. Another genius of the Sky Demon Valley was just as excited as Luo Tian. He was also a peerless genius of the Sky Demon Valley. His reputation was no less than Luo Tian's, and he was also an extremely terrifying existence. At that moment, he was as excited as Luo Tian. Di Shen, Xue Jianyi, and the others snorted coldly and looked regretful that they had missed Lu Ming. In their opinion, Lu Ming's luck was destined to be snatched away. Du Songjue and the rest had solemn expressions. Lu Ming, Kai Xue, the next match will last for an hour. Try to stall for time. If the situation turns bad, admit defeat immediately, understand? You two will definitely be targeted. Du Songjue seriously warned. Senior Du, don't worry. I know what to do. But Bai. Lu Ming smiled and looked at Bai Qixue. He saw Bai Qixue staring at him with her eyes wide open. Bai. That, Kai Xue, when we enter the battlefield later, find a place to inscribe a defensive formation with all your strength. I will come to find you. If you can't win, admit defeat as soon as possible, Lu Ming said. You'll come and find me, right? Bai Qixue stared at Lu Ming and asked. That? Yes, I am. Lu Ming was speechless as he touched his nose. Hehe, then I'll definitely persevere until you come to find me. Bai Qixue laughed happily. Lu Ming was even more speechless. Around him, Yang Guangtu, Du Songjue, and the rest revealed an icy expression and an inexplicable smile. Rukong, you'll be on the same battlefield as the Emperor God. If you encounter the Emperor God, admit defeat immediately, understand? Du Songjue looked at Yu Kong and instructed. Yu Kong was Du Songjue's disciple. This disciple knows. Yu Kong nodded. Buzz. At this moment, there were fluctuations in the space. Lu Ming and the others felt a force pulling them over to the 8 battlefields. Lu Ming and Bai Qixue flew toward the light shield on the 8th battlefield. As they neared the light shield, their bodies began to shrink in a strange manner. In the end, they entered the light shield and disappeared. The next moment, Lu Ming appeared in a barren mountain with stone walls. The 8th battlefield was filled with barren mountains and stone walls. It was completely desolate without a single blade of grass or tree. There were stone walls and rocks everywhere. I've heard that everything in this battlefield is extremely hard. Let's give it a try. Lu Ming threw a punch at a huge rock. Boom. Only a corner of the giant rock had been broken. The rest of it was intact. It's so hard. Although I didn't use my full strength, that punch would have shattered a few mountains if it was outside. But here, it could only break a corner of a huge rock. Lu Ming secretly sighed. In this place, one could unleash their full combat strength. Let's go find Kai Xue. With a single step, Lu Ming's figure soared into the sky, turning into a ray of light and disappearing into the horizon. Although the battlefield was 100,000 miles wide, it wasn't big for the geniuses who were participating in the battle for Providence. An hour was enough for them to make many trips. The weakest Heaven's Pride expert who could transform his fate into a python was at Qin Qingshan's level. After such a long time, Qin Qingshan's cultivation had already reached the 7th level of the spiritual ocean realm. It could be said that the weakest of the participants this time was at the 7th level of the spiritual ocean tier. The 7th level of the spiritual ocean realm was extremely fast. It really didn't take much time to cross a distance of 100,000 li. Outside the battlefield, everyone was also watching with wide eyes. From the outside, the 100,000 li territory had shrunk to 10,000 times smaller. If a person were to be placed inside, he would almost not be able to see them. However, at the spiritual God realm or even the Supreme Being realm, their eyesight was extremely terrifying. In their eyes, they could still clearly see the movements of everyone inside the light shield. Not good. There's an expert heading towards Scarlet Snow. An elder of the Talisman sect called out worriedly. At the moment, Bai Chishue was in a stone forest, inscribing inscriptions and setting up formations to defend. I hope that Kai Shui can't hold on and quickly admit defeat. Du Songjue was a little worried. Just now, they knew that Bai Chishue had gotten the inheritance of a king. They were so excited. Bai Chishue's value in their hearts had increased. Nothing could happen to him. Even though he had lost 90% of his luck, he could not let anything happen to Bai Chishue. Bai Chishue's cultivation of the way of inscription had improved a lot since she got the inheritance of the king. She waved her fingers and countless inscriptions went into the forest. In just a few minutes, he had no idea how many inscriptions were engraved. Ha ha ha, it's the girl from the Talisman sect. I'm so lucky. With a loud laugh, a paragon of the Heavenly Corpse sect appeared. A 15-meter-long dragon of luck appeared above the head of this sovereign of the Sky Corpse sect. He stared at the 100-meter-long dragon of luck above Bai Chishue's head with burning eyes, as if he wanted to swallow her up. This girl is mine. A cold voice was heard. The sky trembled and another figure appeared. It was a young man with cold eyes and a towering demonic chi. Above his head, there was also a fate dragon that was 60 feet long. PH, if you want this little girl's luck, then you'll have to see your ability, the young man from the Heavenly Corpse sect said coldly. Chapter 960. 960 Chapter 960 Killing with one move. In their eyes, Bai Chishue was just a fish on the chopping board, which could be killed at any time. Their opponent was him. Therefore, the two sides were in a stalemate. Then I'll kill you first, then deal with this little girl. The paragon of the Sky Demon Valley burst out with a shocking killing intent. In a flash, he pounced on the paragon of the Heavenly Corpse sect. You're looking for death. The paragon of the Heavenly Corpse sect also shouted coldly, and the two of them began to fight. Bai Chishue was stunned for a second, then she seized the chance to quickly inscribe the formation. She had already inscribed countless formations. Whoosh! All of a sudden, a golden spear light came from the other side, and its target was Bai Chishue. This was a heaven's favorite of the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace, and his eyes flashed with pride. In his opinion, the two people of the Heavenly Corpse sect and the Heavenly Demon Valley were really stupid. They actually started fighting among themselves, which just happened to benefit him. He wanted to kill Bai Chishue and get 100,000 points of luck from her. This is terrible. There are other people. The paragons of the Heavenly Corpse sect and the Heavenly Demon Valley cried out in alarm. They wanted to stop him, but it was too late. Rise. At this moment, Bai Chishue shouted and took a few steps forward. A formation appeared and a huge ancient shield appeared in front of her. Bang! The spearlight struck the shield with a loud boom, but the shield did not break. It only trembled. What a tough shield. The golden-robed young man appeared, his eyes cold. Buzz, buzz, and NBSB, whoosh. All of a sudden, he thrust the spear in his hand 16 times in a row. 16 spear lights pierced through the void and went toward Bai Chishue. Bai Chishue shouted and moved her fingers. Another formation of inscriptions appeared. This time, more than a dozen formations glowed at the same time. More than a dozen ancient shields appeared, blocking Bai Chishue's attacks from all directions. At the same time, there was also a light barrier that enveloped her. From the very beginning, Bai Chishue's formations were all defensive formations. Her purpose was to defend. As long as they could defend, they would wait for Lu Ming. She believed that Lu Ming would definitely arrive in time. Clang, clang, clang. More than a dozen spearlights stabbed into the ancient shield, but the shield only shook for a moment and blocked all of them. It couldn't be broken. The golden-robed young man's face darkened. He looked at the Sky Demon Valley and the Heavenly Corpse Sect's elites and said, "Everyone, this girl is quite capable. She has set up a defensive formation with all her might. It will not be easy for any of us to break through it. If we waste too much time, we will be found by others or Demon Lord Luo Tian. Then, we will not have a share." "Oh, you want to join hands?" the paragon of the Heavenly Corpse Sect said. "That's right. Let's work together to break this little girl's defensive array. Then, we'll see who has the ability to kill her or make her admit defeat," the golden-robed youth said. "All right, let's do it this way. Let's attack together," the sovereign of the Sky Demon Valley said. The three sides reached an agreement and attacked at the same time. Suddenly, Bai Chishue's defense started to shake. In the outside world, Du Songjue and the others revealed worried expressions. Kai Shue's defensive formation is quite mysterious. It should be related to the inheritance she received. However, she won't be able to hold on for long with three Heaven's favorites working together. I hope that when she can't hold on any longer, she'll quickly admit defeat. A few elders were discussing. "Not good, Lu Ming is going to meet an expert," one of the elders suddenly called out. The others quickly looked in Lu Ming's direction. Lu Ming flew at high speed and had already flown tens of thousands of miles. Buzz! All of a sudden, a terrifying saber light slashed at Lu Ming from the side. Lu Ming's eyes flashed and he stopped abruptly, avoiding the saber light. A young man carrying a saber on his back appeared in front of Lu Ming. "Haha, I didn't expect my luck to be so good. You're the first one I've met. Lu Ming, your luck points are mine." The saber-carrying youth's eyes were filled with excitement and ecstasy. He really did not expect that he would be the first to meet Lu Ming. There weren't many top-tier experts in the 8th battlefield, but there were many experts of a lower tier. Many of them were in the top 100 on the list of top 1,000 talents. He, Luo Dao, was ranked 48th on the list of top 1,000 talents. In his opinion, he was more than enough to kill Lu Ming. After killing Lu Ming and obtaining his luck, he would then find a place to hide. After an hour, he would be able to obtain a huge amount of luck. Luck. Get lost. Lu Ming strode forward. "Haha, die." The Luo Dao was unsheathed. The dazzling saber radiance seemed to be able to split the world apart as it slashed at Lu Ming. On the grandstand, Du Songjue and the rest could not help but feel their hearts in their throats. Could Lu Ming block this knife? Not only the Talisman Amulet Sect, but the experts from the Empyrean Divine Palace, the Heavenly Corpse Sect, and the Heavenly Demon Valley were also watching Lu Ming. "Lu Ming, you little bastard. If you don't admit defeat, you'll be dead." Luo Dao is a rare genius among the Emperor Heaven's forbidden guards. The master of the Wang family sneered, but before he could speak, he froze. That was because Luo Dao was already dead. Lu Ming did not stop. He thrust his spear forward. A spear ray that was 10 times more dazzling than Luo Dao's saber ray pierced through the void and destroyed his saber ray, piercing through Luo Dao's throat. Luo Dao's eyes widened. His eyes were filled with confusion, shock, and unwillingness. How could Lu Ming be so powerful that he could kill him with one shot? At this moment, his heart was filled with regret. Did Lu Ming really rely on luck to obtain so many luck points? That was the last thought in his mind. Roar. Once Luo Dao died, the Dragon of Destiny above Lu Ming's head swallowed Luo Dao's Dragon of Destiny in one gulp. Lu Ming's Dragon of Destiny grew another 6 feet. The crowd around the grandstand fell silent, and the patriarch of the Wang clan was extremely embarrassed. Du Songjue and the others revealed expressions of joy. It seems like Lu Ming isn't completely useless to be able to obtain an 800-foot fate dragon. He does have some ability. An old man from the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace spoke. Luo Dao is only ranked 48th on the list of top 1,000 talents. There are many others who are stronger than him. He's the target of public criticism. Even if he's capable, he still has to die. The patriarch of the Wang clan said coldly. On the battlefield, Lu Ming kept Luo Dao's storage ring and was about to continue flying forward when he heard a sonic boom in front of him. Another young man appeared and blocked Lu Ming's path. This young man was covered in corpse chi, and his eyes were fierce. Shi Ming, the 30th on the list of top 1,000 talent. Someone shouted. Haha, let's see how Lu Ming dies this time. The patriarch of the Wang family laughed. Some people from the Heavenly Corpse sect also smiled. If Shi Ming could obtain Lu Ming's immense luck, it would be a great thing for the Heavenly Corpse sect. You killed Luo Dao? Hehe, looks like you have some combat power, but you're dead for sure now that you've encountered me, Shi Ming sneered. Above his head, a 99-foot-long flood dragon was circling. He was just a little bit away from reaching the stage where his fate could transform into a dragon. You're looking for death. Lu Ming did not stop. He strode forward and threw a punch. You're the one who's going to die. Ming Shi waved his hand and a refined corpse pounced at Lu Ming, throwing a punch as well. Bang! The refined corpse and Lu Ming's fist collided. What happened next shocked Shi Ming. His refined corpse was torn into pieces, but Lu Ming's fist did not stop. Instead, it became even faster as it continued to bombard Shi Ming. Chapter 961. 961 I want your luck. Go, go. Ming Shi roared and controlled the two refined corpses to charge at Lu Ming. Bang! Bang! With two loud explosions, the two refined corpses exploded. Lu Ming's fists suddenly sped up, exploding with a terrifying pressure that locked Shi Ming in place. Shi Ming's eyes widened, and he let out a low growl. No, no, how can he be so strong? I'm going to block it. The corpse chi from his body soared to the sky. He exploded with all his strength and slapped at Lu Ming. This palm was extremely terrifying, but in front of Lu Ming, it was like paper. It shattered with a loud bang, and the terrifying fist force directly penetrated his body. At this moment, it was already too late even if he wanted to cry out and admit defeat. Bang! His body was torn into pieces. The 99-foot flood dragon was swallowed by Lu Ming's Dragon of Providence. Lu Ming's Fate Dragon had grown by nearly 100 feet, reaching a height of nearly 960 feet. He was only a few meters away from 1,000 feet. A terrifying devouring power erupted from his palm, devouring Luo Dao's and Shi Ming's blood essence and true yuan. Then, his figure flickered and he flew forward. He looked around for Bai Chishue. On the grandstand, regardless of whether it was the people from the Empyrean Heavenly Divine Palace or the Heavenly Corpse sect, all of them had very gloomy expressions. Lu Ming's combat strength had exceeded their expectations. He had easily killed the 30th genius on the list of top 1,000 talents. How could Lu Ming's combat strength be so powerful? It was a pity that they could only watch. The battlefield was isolated and they could not sense Lu Ming's specific cultivation. This little bastard, could it be that Wang Yang and Wang Chen died at his hands? The master of the Wang family growled. His hatred for Lu Ming was wild. However, Martial Emperor Di was expressionless and calm. No one knew what he was thinking. Du Songjue, Yang Kuangtu, 9 Sons Supreme Master, and the others all smiled. As long as Lu Ming finds Kai Shui and finds a place to hide, he will be safe, an elder of the Talisman sect said. That's right. However, Lu Ming has so much luck now. Even if it is not seized by others, I'm afraid that no one in the 8th battlefield has more than him. By then, he will still have to participate in the battle between the last 8 people. The other person was a little worried and said with a heavy expression. Thinking of this, the others' faces sank. Without strength, it would be very difficult to preserve one's luck in this selection step by step. While Lu Ming was flying, Luo Tian was also flying at full speed. A peerless genius of the Sky Demon Valley was also flying at full speed. They had to find Lu Ming as soon as possible, kill him, and take his luck value. They did not have much time. They only had 1 hour. If Lu Ming dodged them for an hour, they would not have a share of Lu Ming's immense luck. Damn you, Lu Ming. Where are you? Luo Tian growled. Suddenly, he saw a few people in front of him and immediately rushed over. Not good, it's Luo Tian, run. When the few of them saw Luo Tian, they fled frantically. Die. Luo Tian's expression was ferocious. His demonic chi surged and he slashed out with his black demonic blade. 2 people were instantly killed by him. I admit defeat, I admit defeat. The last person shouted crazily. As the man shouted, a beam of light enveloped him. Luo Tian's blade could not cut in. The dragon of fate above his head devoured the fate of the two people who had been killed. The person who had admitted defeat had 90% of his fate devoured. He was then teleported out and landed on the stands. The fate dragon above Luo Tian's head had grown more than 200 feet. That's too little. I still have to find Lu Ming. That chick from the Talisman Amulet sect is not bad either. Luo Tian's eyes were cold as he continued to fly. At this moment, Bai Chishue was struggling to defend. Around her, the shield kept shaking, as if it could not hold on for much longer. Haha, keep it up. This chick can't hold on much longer. The golden-robed youth laughed. Among the three of them, the golden-robed young man was a new talent, but his strength was comparable to the top 100 talents on the list of top 1,000 talents. It was already a miracle that Bai Chishue could last for so long when the three of them joined forces. Lu Ming is almost there. In the stands, the eyes of Du Songjue and the others lit up. They were outside, looking down from above and could see the whole picture. At that moment, they saw Lu Ming rushing toward Bai Chishue. Not good. Luo Tian is also rushing over there. One of the elders shouted. Their faces turned extremely ugly, and they clenched their fists. Ha ha ha. In the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace, the Wang clan's clan head, Jiang clan's clan head, and the others laughed loudly. Lu Ming is destined to die at the hands of the geniuses of the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace. The patriarch of the Wang clan laughed the most heartily. Whoosh! Lu Ming traveled 100 miles in an instant. He crossed countless deserts and stone walls under him. On the way, they encountered other geniuses, but Lu Ming was too fast. He flashed past them. Those geniuses with low cultivation did not dare to block Lu Ming's way at all when they saw his terrifying power. They fled one after another. Lu Ming was not in the mood to snatch the light from providence from these people. Hey! There's a battle ahead, that's Kai Shui. Lu Ming's eyes suddenly lit up when he saw Bai Chishue being besieged by three young men. Boom! 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 His speed became even faster, creating a terrifying sonic boom. The golden-robed young man and the other two heard the terrifying sonic boom and were shocked. They stopped and looked in the direction of the sonic boom. Lu Ming, it's Lu Ming. The three of them were shocked and quickly retreated. The three of them stood side by side with a serious look in their eyes. Although many people wanted to kill Lu Ming and take his luck value, they were all top-ranked geniuses. As for the few of them, although their cultivation was not weak, they were not confident in facing Lu Ming. Before the Battle of Providence, Lu Ming's combat strength was already very strong. They were only on par with the top 100 talents on the list of top 1,000 talents. They did not dare to look down on Lu Ming. Buzz! Lu Ming appeared above Bai Chishue's head. Lu Ming, I knew you would come, Bai Chishue said with a smile. Looks like I'm not too late. Lu Ming also revealed a smile. At this moment, the golden-robed young man and the other two were discussing in secret. If the three of us join forces, we might be able to kill Lu Ming. Do you want to take a gamble? The gold-robed youth sent mentally. Gamble? Fools, can't you see that Lu Ming's fate dragon has grown more than 100 feet longer? In just a short while, the fate dragon has grown more than 100 feet. There must be experts stronger than us who have died in Lu Ming's hands. The paragon from the Heavenly Corpse sect sneered as he slowly backed away. Hearing this, the golden-robed young man and the Sky Demon Valley's sovereign's faces changed. Only then did they notice the changes in Lu Ming's fate dragon. You guys want to leave? Did I let you go? Lu Ming's gaze fell on the golden-robed young man and the other two. The expressions of the three changed drastically. Lu Ming, what do you want? The gold-robed youth gritted his teeth. Of course I want your luck. Lu Ming smiled faintly and stepped forward. Chapter 962. 962 Chapter 962 Fighting the Demon Lord again. Lu Ming, don't go too far. If the three of us join forces, we might be able to fight you. The golden-robed youth called out. Oh, really? If you think you can fight me, then make your move. Lu Ming took a step forward, a faint look of disdain on his face. Haha, Lu Ming, you're very arrogant. Why are you so arrogant in front of a few good-for-nothings? At this moment, a loud laugh came from afar. Then, a blade light cut through the void and came at an extreme speed. Whoosh! The blade light disappeared, and a black-robed man appeared in the air. Demonic chi filled the sky. It was demonic Lord Luo Tian. Luo Tian is here. Haha, Lu Ming is done for this time. The golden-robed young man was stunned for a moment, and then he laughed. He had wanted to run away, but now, he stopped. He sneered at Lu Ming. Lu Ming, weren't you very arrogant just now? Now that the demon lord has descended, let's see how you die. The golden-robed young man was also a proud son of heaven among the imperial guards and was familiar with Luo Tian. The two sovereigns of the Heavenly Corpse sect and the Sky Demon Valley slowly retreated to a place they thought was safe and watched from a distance. Lu Ming, did you kill my brother, Luo Li? Luo Tian looked at Lu Ming coldly and asked. That's right. He's courting death, so I can only fulfill his wish. If you're courting death, I can also fulfill your wish. Lu Ming replied indifferently. You're so arrogant. It's useless to rely on your mouth. If we weren't on the Sky Poison Island, I could have suppressed you with a flip of my hand, Luo Tian said. Back when they were on the Sky Poison Island, Luo Tian was very clear about Lu Ming's combat strength. Although Lu Ming was not weak, he was far inferior to him and could be easily killed by him. Moreover, he had made some progress during this period of time. The luck of the two of you will be mine. Luo Tian looked at Lu Ming and Bai Chishue with a burning gaze. Lu Ming and Bai Chishue's combined luck was over 1 million. Once he got it, he would have a true dragon of luck that was more than 100 feet long. Since ancient times, how many people could have a true dragon's luck that exceeded 1,000 feet? Only those emperors who participated in the Battle of Providence when they were young could achieve this, right? Luo Tian's heart was burning. Buzz! The demonic blade was unsheathed and the blade light broke through the sky. A terrifying blade light was slashed at Lu Ming. This attack was very sudden. Luo Tian had just finished speaking when he suddenly attacked. He wanted to kill Lu Ming in one move and not give him a chance to admit defeat. Lu Ming's mouth twitched and he struck out his palm at Luo Tian's saber light. At this moment, everyone's eyes were on Lu Ming. Lu Ming's palm directly slashed at Luo Tian's saber light. Was he that confident? The talisman sect's people couldn't help but feel nervous. Could Lu Ming block it? This was a strike from demonic Lord Luo Tian, the 10th on the list of top 1,000 talents. How terrifying was that? Many people from the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace had ferocious looks on their faces. They seemed to have already seen the scene of Lu Ming being cut into two by the saber. Boom! Lu Ming's palm finally collided with the saber light. Out of everyone's expectations, Lu Ming's palm slashed and the blade light shattered like fragile glass. You dare to launch a sneak attack with just this bit of power, Lu Ming sneered. Luo Tian's expression changed slightly. Although he had not used his full strength in the attack just now, he had wanted to kill Lu Ming with one attack. The power of the attack was not weak. It contained half of his strength. It was actually shattered by Lu Ming's palm. It seems that you have made great progress during this period of time. However, you still have to die. I only used 50% of my strength in that strike just now, Luo Tian said coldly. Oh, 50% of his power? I'm sorry, I only used 10% of my power in that palm strike. Lu Ming smiled coldly. 10% of my power? Ha ha ha, you're so full of yourself and lying through your teeth. Die. Demonic chi surged from Luo Tian's body. A violent aura burst out. The terrifying saber power filled the entire area. Not far away, the golden-robed young man's face was filled with horror as he retreated. Is this the strength of the demonic Lord Luo Tian? It's too scary. The gold-robed youth was shocked. He felt that Luo Tian could kill him with a casual move. The difference in strength was too great. The peak of the 7th level spirit embryo realm? Lu Ming's lips curled into a smile. Luo Tian's cultivation was at the peak of the 7th level spirit embryo realm. When he was on the Sky Poison Island, Luo Tian's cultivation should have just broken through to the 7th level spirit embryo realm. Buzz. The demonic blade was 1,000 meters long and it slashed violently at Lu Ming. The space twisted and trembled violently under the blade, as if it was being cut open at will. A dragon's roar rang out. Lu Ming burst out with dragon energy, and dense scales appeared all over his body. He stomped his feet and his body shot forward like a cannonball, striking out with his palm. Lu Ming was already at the peak of the 7th level spirit embryo realm, so he was extremely powerful. With the addition of dragon energy, the space was completely distorted when his palm struck. Boom! The demonic blade crushed and Lu Ming's palm continued to push forward. Luo Tian's expression changed. He had used almost 80% of his strength in this move, but he was still defeated by Lu Ming with one palm. How was this possible? Could it be that Lu Ming was right when he said that he had only used 10% of his strength? Impossible. Luo Tian denied it in his heart. When they were on the Sky Poison Island, Lu Ming was completely suppressed by him. He only managed to escape by taking advantage of the Sky Poison Island's environment. He refused to believe that Lu Ming's combat strength had surpassed his in just a few months. This was a huge blow to him. Blood transformation Devil's Blade. Die! Luo Tian shouted as he slashed out with his demonic blade. However, Lu Ming's figure did not stop at all. Surrounded by the four-colored concept, he charged forward and struck out with his palm. Bang! 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 Luo Tian's blade light was shattered by Lu Ming's palm. This was a completely one-sided battle. Currently, 3 of Lu Ming's concepts of heaven and earth were at the peak of level 3 upper tier. He was only one step away from completing level 3. As for the earth mentality, it was about to reach the peak of level 3 upper tier. How terrifying was the power of the fusion of 4 intents? It could probably compete with a 4th level concept. Luo Tian's intent realm was only at the completion of level 3 and had not reached level 4. In terms of artistic conception, Lu Ming could crush Luo Tian. Boom! 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 After more than 10 moves, Luo Tian's saber light was continuously shattered, and he retreated quickly. In the stands, many people widened their eyes in shock. Impossible! The masters of the Wang and Jiang families growled in disbelief. Lu Ming's combat strength was actually so terrifying. How was this possible? Du Songjue, Yang Kuangtu, 9 Sons Supreme Master, and the others were also surprised, but they were more delighted. Lu Ming's combat strength had also exceeded their expectations. However, the stronger Lu Ming was, the happier they were. Haha, I didn't expect Lu Ming to be in the top 10 on the list of top 1000 talents. Brother Ultimate Son, you have a good eye. Du Songjue stroked his beard and laughed. Lu Ming, you've exceeded my expectations too. Supreme Master Jiuyang also smiled. Chapter 963. 963 Chapter 963 Killing Luo Tian. The battle between Lu Ming and Luo Tian had already turned into a white-hot one. Luo Tian was completely at a disadvantage. Bang! Lu Ming's palm landed on Luo Tian's shoulder. One of his arms almost exploded and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Ah, damn it! Luo Tian roared, and a demon god appeared above his head. This demon god had 3 heads and 6 arms, and each of its arms was holding a huge saber. 6 golden chakras were shining. Luo Tian's 3rd bloodline was a 6th-level divine bloodline, which was comparable to the family heads of the 6 great ancient families. His talent was extremely terrifying. Now, 2 more streams of dragon power burst out from Lu Ming's body. He appeared above Luo Tian's head in an instant and stomped down on him. A terrifying power surged towards Luo Tian. Luo Tian was about to perform the blood meridian fusion, but he did not expect Lu Ming to be so fast. He appeared above his head in an instant and exploded with a terrifying blow, interrupting his blood meridian fusion. He could only block it with his saber. But dash! Bang! The saber light that he slashed out shattered under Lu Ming's feet. A huge and terrifying force pressed down on him, almost crushing him to the ground. Catcha! His bones cracked as if they were about to explode. He spat out a mouthful of blood. How can he be so strong? How could he be so strong? Do you want me to admit defeat? No, I can't admit defeat. How can I admit defeat to Lu Ming? At that moment, many thoughts flashed through Luo Tian's mind. However, this thought decided his life's fate. Buzz! Sharp and long nails emerged from Lu Ming's claws. Like dragon claws, he suddenly clawed at Luo Tian. All of Luo Tian's attacks and defenses were shattered in Lu Ming's hands. His dragon-like claws pierced into Luo Tian's chest. No, I'll admit. At that moment, Luo Tian howled madly and wanted to admit defeat. However, Lu Ming's energy exploded and Luo Tian's heart exploded. Luo Tian's scream came to an abrupt end. He widened his eyes and looked at Lu Ming in disbelief. He could feel the vitality in his body draining away rapidly. Endless fear enveloped him. Was he going to die in Lu Ming's hands? How did this happen? In the next moment, his vision turned black and he lost consciousness. His life force had been extinguished. Impossible. You're courting death. The master of the Wang family roared. Luo Tian. Lu Ming killed Luo Tian. An old man beside the Wang clan's clan master roared angrily, his killing intent soaring into the sky. He was also a supreme being, the supreme being of Di Tian's imperial guards. He was Luo Tian's master. He could not accept the fact that Luo Tian was dead. Luo Tian had unparalleled talent, and his third bloodline was at the 6th level of the divine level. In the future, he would definitely be able to break through to the spiritual god realm. There was even a very high possibility that he would be able to break through to the supreme level. This was a future supreme being, but he had died just like that. This was an incomparably huge loss. How many supremes were there in the entire Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace? This generation had reached a golden age, where geniuses gathered and experts were as common as clouds. In the past, Luo Tian's talent would have been enough to suppress an era. Just like those supreme martial artists of today. When they were young, they were almost unrivaled. They pushed through their opponents and became supreme martial artists. It was rare for an era to have a few supremes. However, it was different in this era. Luo Tian could only rank 10th on the list of top 1,000 talents. Haha, well done. Yang Guangtu laughed out loud, drawing the gazes of those from the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace that were filled with killing intent. However, Yang Guangtu ignored him. Martial Emperor Di's face was still calm, and his eyes did not fluctuate at all. It was as if he did not care about the death of Luo Tian. This Lu Ming is interesting. A charming voice came from the Sky Demon Valley. This voice was soft and sweet, making people feel numb all over. It was the voice of the Demon Emperor. When many young people heard this voice, they felt their bodies heat up and their hearts beat faster. Even the woman was no exception. Her voice was like that of a demon king, full of infinite charm. It's a little interesting. The Corpse Emperor opened his mouth. His voice was hoarse and ear-piercing. Many people wanted to vomit blood when they heard his voice, which was the complete opposite of the Demon Emperor's voice. Some of the young people quickly circulated their martial arts to stabilize them sleevers. On the battlefield, Lu Ming's palm erupted with devouring power, devouring Luo Tian into a dried corpse. Boom, boom, boom. Luo Tian's blood essence and quintessential essence were both very strong. Even his bloodline was being refined rapidly. Roar. The fate dragon above Lu Ming's head devoured Luo Tian's fate dragon. Instantly, Lu Ming's fate dragon grew by 200 feet, reaching 117 feet, close to 120 feet. At that moment, the color of Lu Ming's fate dragon changed. Originally, the fate dragon was purple, but now, it had turned purple gold. Not far away, the golden-robed young man and the paragons of the Sky Corps sect and Sky Demon Valley were staring with their eyes wide open. Luo Tian is dead. Luo Tian was killed by Lu Ming. How did this happen? The golden-robed young man muttered to himself, his eyes filled with disbelief. Luo Tian, who was almost invincible in his eyes, was actually killed by Lu Ming. This was a huge blow to him. Run, quickly run. The gold-robed young man was almost scared to death. At the thought of joining forces to deal with Lu Ming just now, He was so scared that he was trembling all over. Lu Ming could probably kill them easily and they would not even have the chance to fight back. In the distance, the paragons of the Sky Demon Valley and the Heavenly Corpse sect were also scared out of their wits. They turned around and ran. "Did I let you go?" Lu Ming glared at them coldly and used the 9 dragons' heaven stomping steps. He took a step forward and his figure was like a stream of light, approaching the golden-robed young man in an instant. "I admit defeat, I admit defeat," the gold-robed youth screamed. Instantly, a pillar of light enveloped him. Above Lu Ming's head, the purple-gold fate dragon devoured 90% of the golden-robed young man's fate dragon. Then, the golden-robed young man's body trembled and he was teleported out. Lu Ming's footsteps did not stop. His speed was terrifyingly fast, and he would catch up with the paragons of the Sky Demon Valley and the Heavenly Corpse sect in a short while. The two of them were horrified and also shouted that they admitted defeat. In the end, Lu Ming devoured 90% of their light from Providence and teleported them out. "Lu Ming, I knew you would come." Bai Chishue came to Lu Ming's side with a smile on her face. "Let's go, we'll go seize the fate." Lu Ming smiled and turned to walk forward with Bai Chishue by his side. On the grandstand, the Talisman Amulet sect members all revealed relaxed smiles. In the 8th battlefield, even Luo Tian had been killed by Lu Ming. There was no one else who could threaten Lu Ming. The most powerful demon clan genius was only on par with Luo Tian. There were a few other geniuses who could transform their fate into dragons, but they were no match for Lu Ming. Lu Ming could be said to be fearless. As for Bai Chishue, with Lu Ming's protection, she would definitely be able to hold on until the end and keep her 100,000 points of luck. Chapter 964. 964 Fatty's Terrifying Bloodline. As for Lu Ming, there was no doubt that he would win first place in the 8th battlefield. Now, he already had a fate dragon that was more than 1,200 feet long. In the 8th battlefield, unless everyone else's fate was added together, they would not be able to compare to Lu Ming. Following that, Lu Ming went on a rampage. Those who ran into Lu Ming were killed by him immediately when they tried to attack him. Some of them even shouted that they admitted defeat. Half an hour later, Lu Ming was accompanied by more than 10 Talisman Amulet sect disciples. Lu Ming wanted to bring them to the end. Not good. Rukong is in danger. He's going to encounter an emperor god. In the stands, an elder suddenly shouted. There was no longer any suspense on the 8th battlefield. Everyone's eyes turned to the other battlefields. Everyone from the Talisman sect turned to look at the first battlefield. The Talisman Amulet sect's paragons were all in the first battlefield. Everyone could see that Yu Kong was hurrying on his way. The fate dragon above his head had reached a height of about 200 feet. On the other side, the Emperor God was flying toward Yu Kong at a terrifying speed, but Yu Kong didn't seem to notice him. If this continued, the two of them would soon bump into each other. The Talisman sect's people were on tenterhooks. Sure enough, in just a dozen breaths, the two of them met. Yu Kong turned around upon hearing the commotion, and his eyes narrowed. Without hesitation, Yu Kong was about to admit defeat. Die. At the same time, the Emperor God made his move. A ray of sword light was incredibly fast. It seemed to penetrate layers of space in an instant and cut Yu Kong's body almost instantly. I admit defeat. Before Yu Kong could finish his sentence, he was torn into pieces by the sword light. Fast, too fast, so fast that even the air could not react. Yu Kong, Du Songjue roared in grief. Why would I? The other patriarchs and elders of the Talisman Amulet sect looked dejected. Yu Kong, an expert of the Talisman sect who was second only to Huan Zhen and ranked 15th on the list of top 1,000 talents, had been killed just like that. He was almost defenseless in the hands of the God Emperor. The fighting power of an Emperor God was unfathomable. After the Emperor God killed Yu Kong and devoured the fate dragon, he did not stop. He turned into a golden light and flew away. Ha ha ha. Good kill. All of your Talisman sect's paragons will be exterminated. Although Lu Ming is safe now, he will still die if he encounters the Emperor God in the future. In the area of the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace, mocking laughter rang out. Du Songjue and the rest clenched their fists tightly. The talisman amulet sect originally had 13 zongzas. 7 of them had already fallen, and now 1 more had fallen, leaving only 5. Then, they turned their attention to Wen Jisha and the rest. Unfortunately, their luck wasn't good either. They met an undefeatable expert, but fortunately, they weren't killed in one strike and all admitted defeat. As time passed, some people were killed, but more and more people were either defeated or sent out of the battlefield. On the grandstand, more and more people appeared. Many of them sighed. After admitting defeat, there was not much luck left. Ruan Tingting also appeared in the stands. When she met a strong opponent, she immediately admitted defeat. Meanwhile, in the 8 battlefields, the fighting was getting more and more intense. Lu Ming was almost invincible in the 8th battlefield. Behind him, several experts who had transformed their providence into a dragon ran into Lu Ming. However, when they saw Lu Ming's true dragon of providence that was hundreds of feet long, their expressions changed drastically, and they turned to run. They were not fools. Lu Ming had survived until now, and his fate dragon had grown by a few hundred feet. Needless to say, those who were plotting against Lu Ming had given their fate to him. What were they waiting for if not to run? However, with Lu Ming's speed, how could they escape? In the end, they all admitted defeat. In the end, Lu Ming's true dragon of providence was close to a terrifying height of 1,500 feet. It circled in the sky and could be seen from afar. Those who saw it from afar had a drastic change in their expressions and turned to run. Even the genius of the Sky Demon Valley, who was as famous as Luo Tian, ran faster than anyone else. This made Lu Ming a little depressed. The distance was too far and it would be more troublesome for him to chase after them. He was also afraid that he would be lured away and the talisman sect disciples would be in danger. Therefore, Lu Ming could not be bothered to chase after them. The situation on the 8th battlefield had been settled, and the 1st battlefield was about the same. The other battlefields were filled with smoke. Illusion Reality has encountered Dongfang Yu. An elder of the talisman sect called out. The others turned their attention to the 4th battlefield, their hearts in their throats. The experts from the other factions also turned their attention to the 4th battlefield. Huan Zhen and Dongfang Yu, this was a battle of the peak. Huan Zhen was ranked 8th on the list of top 1,000 talents, while Dongfang Yu was ranked 3rd, just behind Di Aishan and Xue Jianyi. As soon as the two met, an intense battle unfolded. However, it was obvious that Dongfang Yu was stronger. However, Huan Zhen did not want to make any mistakes, so he was on the defense the entire time. Huan Zhen was like a bright moon. His entire body was glowing. Bright moons appeared in front of him, blocking his attacks. This was a formation carved with one's own body, and it was an extremely powerful defensive formation. It was many times stronger than the formation that Ji Mai had carved with his own body. At the same time, runes and arrays appeared around Huan Zhen, which activated the runes. All sorts of light glowed continuously as all sorts of defensive formations were formed. Although the east side was extremely powerful, Huan Zhen was focused on defense. It was impossible for him to break through in a short time. The two of them were in a deadlock. In the end, Dongfang Yu had no choice but to retreat. This made the talisman amulet sect members heave a long sigh of relief. The people from the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace snorted unhappily. They felt that it was a pity that Dongfang Yu did not kill Huan Zhen. Meanwhile, on the 2nd battlefield, Fatty and Wang Fenshen were fighting. Die. The moment Wang Fenshen saw Fatty, he exploded with a sharp killing intent and launched a swift attack. He knew that the Fatty was the disciple of the Devil Sky Sovereign, but this was a battle of destiny. Even if he killed the Fatty, the Devil Sky Sovereign couldn't say anything. Damn it, you want to kill me? You're still 10,000 years too early. Fatty shouted and activated his bloodline. His 3rd bloodline and 8 golden chakras almost made Wang Fenshen's eyes pop out. Even the spirit god and supreme being experts in the stands could not control their emotions. They stood up in shock. An 8th-ranked divine bloodline. It was actually an 8th-ranked divine bloodline. This was too terrifying. Other than the few sovereigns, the others were all extremely shocked. Senior Mo Tian's disciple is extraordinary as expected. The 9 sons Paragon sighed. Du Songjue and the others nodded their heads. They had seen Fatty before, but they didn't expect this unreliable Fatty to be so terrifying. As expected of the disciple of an emperor. Damn it. The Wang clan master and the others growled in shock. An 8th level divine level expert was extremely rare. For example, Yang Kuangtu was an 8th level divine level expert. His battle prowess was extremely powerful, and he was able to take on 3 great supremes by himself. They recalled that this Fatty was Lu Ming's sworn brother. Fen Tian, kill this Fatty, kill him. The patriarch of the Wang clan growled. This Fatty was too terrifying. Once he grew up in the future, he would be another Yang Kuangtu. Now was the perfect time to kill him. After this, the Devil Sky Sovereign would not be able to say anything. Chapter 965. 965 The Final Battle. Demonic Sky Old Monster's judgment is pretty good. He actually took in such a disciple. The Demon Emperor's soft voice sounded again. The eyes of Martial Emperor Die and the Corpse Emperor flashed with a sharp light. Even a Martial Emperor expert would be tempted by someone who could awaken an 8th level divine level bloodline. So what if you're a level 8 divine level expert? I'll still kill you. Wang Fenshen launched a fearsome attack at the Fatty. Although the Fatty's bloodline was of a high grade, his cultivation was slightly weaker. It seemed like he had just broken through to the 6th level spirit embryo realm not long ago. However, Fatty didn't want to make any mistakes, so he focused on defense the entire time. In the end, he took out a huge shield and blocked Wang Fenshen's flames. Wang Fenshen continued to attack. The Fatty shouted, but he couldn't break through. Time continued to pass. Suddenly, the 8 battlefields trembled and the light shield shone. Everyone in the battlefields was teleported out. An hour had passed. Haha, you want to deal with me? In your dreams. When the Fatty realized that he had appeared on the grandstand, he laughed arrogantly and looked at Wang Fenshen provocatively. Wang Fenshen's eyes were about to spew fire. Fatty, you've actually awakened an 8th level divine rank bloodline. That's amazing. At the moment, there was a huge axe floating above the fat man's head. The 8 golden chakras were shining. Bai Chishue's eyes were wide open as she looked at the fat man in shock. Lu Ming was also surprised. He did not expect that the Fatty's 3rd bloodline would be so terrifying. It was actually a level 8 divine level. It was no wonder that when they first met, Fatty was so mysterious. He did not tell Lu Ming when Lu Ming asked him. Countless pairs of eyes were looking at Fatty. Some were shocked, some were envious, and some were jealous. Ha ha ha, I'm sorry. This is talent. I can't help it. I was born with it. The Fatty was extremely proud as he laughed out loud. When he saw the way others looked at him, he felt extremely comfortable. He smiled so much that his eyes could not even open. The heavens are really unfair. They actually allowed this damn Fatty to awaken an 8th level divine rank bloodline. Within the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace, someone gritted his teeth in anger. That's right. What a waste. It's like a fresh flower stuck in cow dung, someone said. Fatty's ears twitched a few times. When he heard these words, he was instantly displeased. He stared at these people with an unkind gaze and shouted, "You're the fucking cow dung. You're all trash. I'm just envious and jealous. I'm the son of the heavens, and I'm destined to sweep across the world and step on all of you. Damn it, this damn Fatty, he's really arrogant." Those people almost vomited blood. Di Shen, Shui Jenny, AO2, and the others also looked at Fatty with a serious look. Fatty's cultivation was still slightly low, but once he grew up, he would be a great enemy. What? At this moment, many people looked at Lu Ming and were dumbfounded. The fate dragon above Lu Ming's head was too big and too long. It was 100 or so feet. It was too shocking. They had thought that Lu Ming would have been killed by Luo Tian or the Sky Demon Valley's prodigies in the 8th battlefield. They did not expect him to be alive. Furthermore, the length of the fate dragon had become even more terrifying. What? Lu Ming has killed Luo Tian. When they found out the truth, they were all dumbfounded. Lu Ming could actually kill Luo Tian? How could Lu Ming's combat strength be so strong? Before the battle for the light from Providence started, some of them thought that Luo Tian and the rest were lucky to be assigned to the same battlefield as Lu Ming. At this moment, their faces were pale and their backs were drenched in cold sweat. This wasn't just good luck, it was bad luck. If they had been assigned to the 8th battlefield, they might have ended up like Luo Tian. They knew that they had underestimated Lu Ming. The Emperor God and the others looked at Lu Ming in surprise. At this time, the 8 battlefields on the fighting ring had all disappeared and returned to the fighting ring. At the same time, 8 rays of light fell on the 8 people. They were Lu Ming, Di Shen, AO2, Bloodsword 1, Corpse Warrior, Feng Xian, Dongfang Yu, and Wang Fenshen. 8 people meant that they were the 8 people with the highest luck value in the battlefield. Lu Ming was the only Talisman sect member. There were 3 people from the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace, with the most people. They were the God Emperor, Dongfang Yu, and Wang Fenshen. The 2 people from the Sky Corpse sect, Bloodsword 1 and Corpse Battle. The 2 from the Heavenly Demon Valley were AO2 and Feng Xian. Feng Xian was an extremely beautiful woman, a peerless genius of the Sky Demon Valley, with the Phoenix bloodline in her body. Next, the 8 paragons would compete in pairs to fight for each other's luck. The rules were the same as before. If you were defeated, half of your fate would be taken away. If you admitted defeat, 90% of your fate would be taken away. If you were killed, all your fate would belong to your opponent. Next would be the final battle of the Battle of Providence, as well as the most pinnacle battles. Each of them was an extremely powerful existence. Among them, Lu Ming was one of the dark horses. There was another dark horse, Feng Xian of the Sky Demon Valley. Both of them were new talents. The others were all Heaven's favorites who were famous in the Eastern Barren Territory. AO2 was a Heaven's favorite who was thought to be able to compete with gods and emperors. Some people thought that AO2 was even stronger than Xue Jianyi, who was ranked 2nd on the list of top 1,000 talents. The Emperor God ranked 1st on the list of top 1,000 talents, and most people thought he was the top genius among the younger generation in the East Barren. Dongfang Yu, 3rd on the list of top 1,000 talents. Corpse Warrior was ranked 4th on the list of top 1,000 talents, while Wang Fenshen was ranked 5th. Everyone was looking forward to the next battle. After this battle, the list of top 1,000 talents would be rearranged. Buzz. 6 of the 8 beams of light had disappeared, leaving only 2 behind. One of them enveloped Lu Ming while the other enveloped Wang Fenshen. The first battle was actually between Lu Ming and Wang Fenshen. Everyone's eyes fell on the 2 of them. Wang Fenshen looked at Lu Ming with a strong killing intent in his eyes. Fen Tian, are you confident? The patriarch of the Wang clan asked. His luck is mine. Wang Fenshen licked his lips and revealed a greedy look. He moved and landed on the fighting ring. Lu Ming, if you can't win, you can just admit defeat. Du Songjue warned in a low voice. Haha, I believe that Lu Ming will definitely win. Yang Kuangtu laughed. Fatty, you were burned by this guy just now. I'll take revenge for you now. Lu Ming smiled, took a step forward, and landed on the fighting ring. Above their heads, there was a true dragon of luck. Right now, Wang Fenshen's true dragon of providence was at least 500 feet long. However, in front of Lu Ming's true dragon of providence, he was like a tiny dot, being looked down upon by Lu Ming's true dragon of providence. Lu Ming, I have to thank you for obtaining so much fate because it's all going to be mine later. The greed in Wang Fenshen's eyes intensified. You're very confident. Luo Tian was just as confident before, but I killed him in the end. Lu Ming laughed with a contemptuous look. Mph, don't compare me to Luo Tian. I can kill him if I fight him with all my strength. Wang Fenshen said coldly. Oh, was it? Then should we set up a life-and-death battle? Lu Ming said indifferently, but his words shocked everyone at the scene. Chapter 966. 966 Battling Wang Fenshen. As soon as he said that, everyone's hearts trembled. The ancient battle platform in the ancient city of Destiny could set up a life-and-death battle, but once it was set, both sides would have to fight to the death. It wouldn't end until life and death were determined, not even admitting defeat was allowed. Originally, the last battle would only last for half an hour. If the winner was not decided in half an hour, it would automatically be decided that the person who had the upper hand would win. However, once a life-and-death battle was set, there was no time limit. It would only end when one party died in battle. A life-and-death battle meant that there was no way out. They had to win, and if they lost, they would die. Even supreme martial artists and emperors could not interfere. One had to have great confidence in themselves before they dared to set a life-and-death battle. Would Wang Fenshen dare to agree? Everyone's eyes were focused on Wang Fenshen. At this moment, Wang Fenshen's eyes were filled with uncertainty. He fixed his gaze on Lu Ming as if he was trying to figure out the truth from his expression. Was Lu Ming bluffing, or did he really have such strong abilities? He dared to have a life-and-death battle with him. However, Lu Ming's expression was calm. He could not make a judgment. Moreover, he did not see the exact situation of Lu Ming's battle with Luo Tian. He was not confident in Lu Ming's strength. Do you dare or not? Lu Ming spoke again. His voice was calm but aggressive. Why should I agree to a life-and-death duel? In any case, I'm definitely going to win this battle, Wang Fenshen argued. What a joke. Since you think you've won, why don't you agree to a life-and-death duel? Back in 9 Dragons, I almost killed your Wang family patriarch. You must hate me to the core, right? 10,000 people want to kill me. Since they want to kill me and have the confidence to do so, why don't they agree to a life-and-death battle? You're afraid. You don't have the confidence to kill me. You don't have the confidence in this battle. You don't have the confidence in yourself. How can you win against me? Lu Ming's every word was harsh and aggressive. Every word hit Wang Fenshen's weak point. He did not even have the confidence to win. How could he win against Lu Ming? Damn you, you little bastard. The patriarch of the Wang clan growled, his eyes filled with cold killing intent. Back in 9 Dragons, he was almost beaten to death by Lu Ming. It was the shame of his life. Now, Lu Ming was bringing up the same thing again and even using it to pressure Wang Fenshen. This made the patriarch of the Wang family furious. Haha, Lu Ming, you almost killed the old man. How would a young man dare to have a life-and-death battle with you? I think that Wang something Tian should just admit defeat and stop embarrassing himself here. The Wang family is a bunch of useless people. The fat man laughed, his words were full of insult. This made the head of the Wang family and Wang Fenshen so angry that they almost exploded. At this moment, Wang Fenshen's face was flushed red. He was burning with anger and his killing intent was burning. All right, I promise you. Wang Fenshen roared. He had to win this battle. If he still did not win after hearing Lu Ming's words, his heart of martial arts would definitely be unstable. Moreover, the entire Wang family would become a laughingstock in the Eastern Barren Territory. He wanted to crush Lu Ming's bones and scatter his ashes, turning him into ashes. All right, I'll fight to the death with Wang Fen, Lu Ming said loudly. A battle of life and death, yes. Wang Fenshen replied as a scorching aura shot up into the sky. Buzz. At this moment, Lu Ming and Wang Fenshen's bodies were glowing with a faint blood-red light. This meant that the life-and-death battle had been decided. It was useless to admit defeat until one side died in battle. Heaven burning flames. Wang Fenshen's killing intent was cold, but his body was covered in raging flames. Wang Fenshen's entire body seemed to have turned into a man of fire. His muscles, bones, and even his hair were burning as if they had all turned into flames. 6 fingers of heaven burning, 1 finger to destroy. Wang Fenshen strode forward and pointed with his finger. A finger, hundreds of meters long and formed by flames, with a clear fingerprint on it, pointed at Lu Ming like the finger of God. The terrifying heat and murderous intent burst out and surged toward Lu Ming. Wang Fenshen used a terrifying killing move as soon as he made his move. Since he had agreed to a life-and-death battle, Wang Fenshen would let go of everything and fight with all his might. A dragon's roar rang out as Lu Ming burst out with dragon energy. His entire body was covered in dense scales, and 4 types of intense revo levered around him. He threw a punch. Boom! The fist and the heaven-burning finger collided. The fist and the flaming finger collided, and waves of energy burst forth. One side of the 100-mile-wide fighting ring was covered in purple flames, while the other side was covered in 4-colored light. In the end, the flaming finger exploded. Lu Ming's body trembled slightly and he took 2 steps back. The fusion of destruction and fire intent. Also, his cultivation is at the early stage of the 8th-level spirit embryo realm. After exchanging a blow, Lu Ming had a rough estimate of Wang Fenshen's strength. Wang Fenshen had also comprehended 2 intents and had successfully fused them together. His destruction intent and fire intent had both reached the 3rd-level completion. When they were combined together, their destructive power was extremely terrifying. If it wasn't for the fact that this was the battle platform of the ancient city of Providence, everything within hundreds of miles would have been destroyed and turned into lava. Furthermore, Wang Fenshen's cultivation was higher than Luo Tian's, at the early stage of the 8th-level spirit embryo realm. Wang Fenshen was indeed the 5th-ranked supreme talent on the list of top 1,000 talents. His strength was terrifying. Heaven-burning 6 fingers, 2-finger suppression, heaven-burning 6 fingers, 3-finger break, heaven-burning 6 fingers, 4-finger termination. Wang Fenshen's fire quintessential essence exploded as he pointed out 3 times. 3 huge fingers in the shape of a triangle flew towards Lu Ming. Prison suppressing heaven art. The essential core in Lu Ming's body roared and boiled. He circulated the prison suppressing heaven technique to 50% of its power. If his current prison suppressing heaven technique were to be fully unleashed, it would be equivalent to the power of a low-grade god-tier martial technique. Even if a low-grade god-tier martial technique was equivalent to the first stage of a low-grade god-tier martial technique, only a spiritual god realm powerhouse would be able to unleash its full power. He was now at the peak of the 7th-level spirit embryo realm. He didn't have enough vital essence, so it was impossible for him to release all of his power. However, 50% of its power was already extremely terrifying. Boom! 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 Lu Ming threw 3 punches in a row. The power of the prison suppressing steely burst forth and suppressed everything. The 3 flaming fingers were immediately destroyed, turning into flames and dissipating. Wang Fenshen's expression changed slightly. He waved his hands and pointed out 2 more fingers. Heaven-burning 6 fingers. 5 fingers are broken. 6 fingers burn the heavens. The 2-finger forces were pointed out one after another, and the space trembled like a piece of cloth. Wherever the finger forces passed, the space turned into a vacuum. Lu Ming felt a terrifying force surging towards him. This force was extremely hot, as if it wanted to turn him into ashes. The 4 wills surrounded him, forming a suit of armor that covered his entire body. Lu Ming strode forward and threw 2 more punches. 2 earth-shaking rumbles sounded, and it was as if the entire ancient city of Providence was shaking violently. A terrifying force swept out in all directions, but it was blocked by an invisible energy at the edge of the fighting ring. The 2 flaming fingers were crushed by Lu Ming with 1 blow and collapsed. Lu Ming strode forward, breaking through the obstruction of the flames like an ancient god, and charged at Wang Fenshen. Chapter 967. 967 Chapter 967 Begging. Wang Fenshen's expression turned grave. He did not show any mercy. His first move was a killing move. He wanted to kill Lu Ming with a powerful attack. He did not expect Lu Ming to be so terrifying that he could destroy his attack and attack him. A ball of purple flame appeared above his head. As soon as the flame appeared, the space around him crackled as if it was a fuel that was burning fiercely. The 7 golden chakras on the flame also attracted everyone's eyes. Divine level rank 7 bloodline. Wang Fenshen's bloodline level had reached the terrifying level 7 divine level. Wang Fenshen's body turned into light and merged with his bloodline. Then, the purple flames twisted and turned into a flame giant that was more than 10 meters tall. The flame giant held a flame sword and slashed it down at Lu Ming. The scorching flames shook Lu Ming's four-colored will. Kill. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with intense killing intent. The nine-dragon bloodline emerged, and in the next moment, Lu Ming transformed into 9 dragons. A divine level rank 6 9-dragon bloodline. At that moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on Lu Ming and the 9-dragon bloodline. It's the 9 dragons, the legendary 9 dragons. I didn't expect Lu Ming to awaken the 9 dragons bloodline. My God, the 9 dragons are existences that surpass the true dragon. I've never heard of anyone who can awaken the bloodline of the 9 dragons. As soon as the 9 dragon bloodlines appeared, the surrounding people exclaimed in shock. This was especially so for the people from the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace and the Heavenly Demon Valley. The bloodline of the 9 dragons. It's the bloodline of the 9 dragons. No wonder he can control the divine 9-dragon cauldron. It must be related to the bloodline of the 9 dragons. The patriarch of the Wang clan muttered to himself. The bloodline of the 9 dragons. I must get it. A supreme flood dragon from the demon race glared at Lu Ming with burning eyes, as if he wanted to swallow Lu Ming whole. There was also AO2, the flood dragon race's prodigy, whose eyes were burning with passion. The bloodline of the 9 dragons was a deadly temptation to the flood dragon tribe elder. Die, you personally took action to capture Lu Ming. It seems that you knew that he had the 9-dragon bloodline. Your goal was the 9-dragon bloodline, right? The Demon Emperor's voice resounded throughout the entire area. His bright eyes fell on Martial Emperor Die. Many people were shocked. Perhaps it was true. Martial Emperor Die snorted and did not speak. Roar. The dragon's roar reverberated throughout the fighting ring. The 9 dragons stepped in the air and grabbed Wang Fenshen's sword with their 9 claws. With a loud boom, the sword collapsed, and the dragon claw continued to attack. The flame giant roared in anger. Its terrifying fist was aimed at Lu Ming, but it was blocked by a dragon claw. Bang! 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 The 9 dragons' heaven stomping steps was used continuously, and 6 waves of power blasted toward the flame giant. At the same time, it opened its mouth wide and its devouring power burst forth, enveloping the flame giant. Immediately, the flames on the flame giant's body trembled non-stop, as if they were about to collapse. Buzz! The divine dragon wagged its tail, and the 9 dragons' tail whipped towards the flame giant. This move contained the might of the prison suppressing heavenly art. Bang! The flame giant was struck by the dragon's tail, and a large part of its body exploded, leaving a huge gap. The flame giant staggered back. The hole in its body was quickly healing, and the flames spread again. Sky-burning flame sword. The flame giant roared in anger. The sword in his hand slashed out a hot sword light towards the head of the 9 dragons. However, the 9 dragons grabbed out with their sharp claws and blocked his sword. In the blink of an eye, dozens of moves had been exchanged. Of course, during this process, Lu Ming had only used 1 burst of dragon energy and had not used his full strength. Wang Fenshen was only his first opponent. There were more powerful opponents after him. His final opponent was the Emperor God. Wang Fenshen's strength was indeed terrifying. If he were to fight Luo Tian at the same level, he would be stronger than Luo Tian. However, Wang Fenshen was strong, but Lu Ming was stronger. After a few dozen moves, he was completely suppressed. The 9 dragons roared and grabbed the flame giant with their 9 claws. With a powerful tear, the flame giant exploded and turned into flames. However, these flames drifted back and actually began to condense in the air again. A natural-type bloodline had an advantage, and that was extremely tenacious vitality. However, Lu Ming would not give him the chance. He stomped with his dragon claws and activated the 9 dragons' heaven stomping steps. A huge force struck the flames. The flames that were about to merge exploded again. At this moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on him without blinking. Could it be that Wang Fenshen was going to be defeated? This extremely talented genius who had awakened a 7th-level divine-level bloodline was going to be killed by Lu Ming? No, damn it. The master of the Wang clan was extremely nervous. Wang Fenshen was a peerless heaven's favorite that only appeared once every few thousand years in the Wang family. His talent was even stronger than when he was young. He was going to inherit Wang Fenshen's legacy in the future. But now, he was in danger. Because this was a life-and-death battle. One party could only stop after they died in battle. But now, Wang Fenshen was completely suppressed. Roar! The 9 dragons roared and devouring power burst out from their mouths. They swallowed a large ball of Wang Fenshen's flames. No! Wang Fenshen's terrified scream could be heard from within the flames. When the 9 dragons devoured the flames, they were constantly refined by their terrifying refining power. Don't you have a strong life force and can condense it? Then I'll refine you. The remaining flames flew back rapidly and gathered together, turning back into Wang Fenshen's appearance. At this moment, his face was pale, his body was trembling, and blood was flowing out of the corner of his mouth. His eyes were filled with intense fear. Bang! Bang! The 9 dragons stepped forward and pressed toward Wang Fenshen. No, Lu Ming, don't kill me. Let me go. No. Wang Fenshen cried out in horror as he retreated. He no longer had the strength to fight. Let you go. Have you forgotten that this is a life-and-death battle? Lu Ming sneered. You're the winner. You're the winner now. If the winner opens his mouth, he can go around the other party. Wang Fenshen shouted. In a life-and-death battle where life and death were seen, it would usually only end when one side died in battle. Of course, there was another situation where the winner would take the initiative to spare the other party. That would also work. However, since it was a life-and-death battle, how could the winner possibly spare the other party? Haha, Wang Fenshen, are you joking? Why should I let you off? Lu Ming laughed heartily. Wang Fenshen was at a loss for words. That's right. Why would Lu Ming let him off? They were mortal enemies. However, he really didn't want to die. With his unparalleled talent, it wouldn't be a big problem for him to break through to the supreme level in the future. He even wanted to break through to the Supreme Emperor position and dominate the Eastern Barren Territory. He had a boundless future ahead of him, so how could he want to die? But on what basis did he ask Lu Ming to let him off? He couldn't help but look at the Wang family's master. Lu Ming, let Fen Tian go and I'll let go of what happened in the past. The patriarch of the Wang clan spoke, but his voice was cold and even revealed a hint of command. Chapter 968. 968 Staring at Die. Old man, who do you think you are? Lu Ming glanced at the Wang family master and continued, what do you mean you won't pursue it? It was you and those old fogies who besieged me back then. I should be the one to hold you accountable. Do I need you to not hold you accountable? What a joke. A faint voice filled with contempt reverberated throughout the entire area, causing some people to be dumbfounded. Contempt. This was blatant contempt. Lu Ming was looking down on a supreme martial artist. The Wang family head said that he would not pursue the matter with Lu Ming, but Lu Ming's meaning was clear. Did he need the Wang family head to not pursue the matter? The one who should be held accountable was him, Lu Ming. What a big tone, what great confidence. However, at this moment, no one felt that Lu Ming was arrogant. Even Wang Fenshen had been defeated by Lu Ming. He had the right to be arrogant. In the future, there was a high possibility that he would strive for the Supreme Being position. By then, why would he need to fear the Wang family head? The patriarch of the Wang clan's face was completely red. He was extremely angry. How many years had it been? Ever since he had stepped into the position of a supreme martial artist, no one had dared to speak to him in such a manner for many years. No one had dared to look down on him. Even the other supreme martial artists would be polite to him. But now, he was being looked down upon by a young man in his 20s. This was an insult to him. Lu Ming transformed back into his human form. He sneered and said, "Old man, let's take a step back. You said that you won't pursue this matter, but can you represent the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace?" Then, he looked at Martial Emperor Die. The Wang family master and the others also looked at Martial Emperor Die. That's right, the Wang family master did not have the final say in the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace. It was Martial Emperor Die. At this moment, Martial Emperor Di's eyes shot out two cold rays of light as he stared at Lu Ming. Lu Ming was not afraid at all. He looked at Martial Emperor Di with a hint of provocation in his eyes. Everyone was shocked. Lu Ming was so audacious that he dared to look at Martial Emperor Di in the eye. However, Martial Emperor Di didn't say a word. The light in his eyes disappeared, and he regained his calm. The patriarch of the Wang family had an ugly expression on his face, and Wang Fenshen was filled with despair. Martial Emperor Di's attitude explained everything. Kill. Suddenly, Lu Ming moved. His body was like lightning as he charged toward Wang Fenshen. No. Wang Fenshen roared and tried his best to resist. However, he was severely injured and did not have much energy left. How could he be Lu Ming's match? In just a few moves, his bones and tendons were broken, and he spat out large mouthfuls of blood, falling to the ground like a dead dog. Bang! Bang! Lu Ming stepped onto the fighting ring and a long spear appeared in his hand. He walked toward Wang Fenshen, his cold killing intent covering Wang Fenshen's entire body. No, don't kill me, I don't want to die, he shouted. Run! Wang Fenshen roared as he twisted his body in an attempt to escape. His eyes were filled with endless fear. In his life, he had killed countless people and slaughtered countless Heaven's Chosen. But now that he was about to die at the hands of another Heaven's Chosen, he was so terrified. Whoosh! Under everyone's gaze, the spear pierced through Wang Fenshen's heart. The powerful qi burst out and crushed Wang Fenshen's heart. Old ancestor, avenge me! Wang Fenshen let out an unwilling roar before his life was extinguished. A proud son of heaven had been killed by Lu Ming here. Everyone sighed in their hearts. If such a heaven's favorite didn't die, he would definitely be a figure who would dominate the Eastern Barren territory in the future. It would be no problem for him to become a supreme martial artist. Unfortunately, there were countless heaven's favorites in the world, but how many of them could grow up? A dead heaven's favorite was destined to be a stepping stone for others. Lu Ming, I'll kill you. The master of the Wang family roared and exploded with cold killing intent. His eyes were red, and his heart was bleeding. This time, the Wang clan had suffered too heavy a loss. The Wang family had 4 heaven's favorites in the top 100. However, 2 of them had already died before. Now, even the most talented Wang Fenshen was dead. There was only one person left in the Wang family. Originally, the Wang clan had 4 geniuses in the top 100 of the list of top 1,000 talents in a generation. How glorious was that? It was as though they wanted to see the Wang clan rise up rapidly and even surpass the other 5 ancient aristocratic families, becoming the leader of the ancient aristocratic families in the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace. However, everything was in vain now. His hatred for Lu Ming could not be washed away even if he used all the water in the world. Old man, this is what I wanted to say as well. This is only a small interest. In the future, I will personally take your dog head. Oh, I forgot to tell you, that Wang Yang and Wang Chen were also killed by me, Lu Ming said coldly, a cold smile hanging on his face. You deserve to die. The master of the Wang family roared in anger. Originally, as a supreme martial artist who had lived for thousands of years, he had a firm mind and had seen many storms. He would not be so easily angered. However, he could not remain calm when facing Lu Ming. In the Battle of 9 Dragons, he was almost beaten to death by Lu Ming. Now, many of the Wang family's geniuses had died at Lu Ming's hands. He hated Lu Ming to the core. If it was not for the fact that his cultivation was completely suppressed in the ancient city of Providence, he would have crushed Lu Ming's bones and scattered his ashes. He took a few deep breaths before he slowly calmed down. At this moment, Lu Ming's fate dragon had devoured Wang Fenshen's fate dragon. Lu Ming's fate dragon had grown to 500 feet and was now close to 2,000 feet. At the same time, the devouring power burst forth and turned Wang Fenshen into a dried corpse. He kept his storage ring and kicked him off the fighting ring. This made the Wang clan leader so angry that he almost vomited blood. Lu Ming moved and returned to the stands. Haha, you're amazing, Lu Ming. You've avenged me. That Wang Fenshen looked so arrogant, but he dared to burn me with fire. He's a dead dog now. The fatty laughed out loud. He was so excited that his mouth cracked open. Also, Lu Ming, did you see that the old man from the Wang family was so angry that his face was the color of a pig's liver and smoke was coming out of his head? It was really exciting. Fatty continued to laugh. He didn't lower his voice at all, and it spread to the entire area. The patriarch of the Wang family, who had calmed down with great difficulty, suddenly became furious again, and his whole body trembled with anger. The juniors deserved to die. He roared in his heart. Yang Guangtu took a few sips of wine and laughed even more heartily. The others were speechless. These people were simply lawless and didn't know how to write fear. The battle continued, and 2 more pillars of light landed on 2 more figures. AO2 of the Heavenly Demon Valley and Dongfang Yu of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace. Many people's eyes were filled with a shocking light. It was another highlight. Dongfang Yu was ranked 3rd on the list of top 1,000 talents, while AO2 was said to be able to compete with divine emperors. The battle between the two would definitely be exciting. The 2 figures landed on the fighting ring. Without saying anything, the battle immediately broke out. Dongfang Yu was incomparably powerful. He had cultivated 2 kinds of deity-level cultivation techniques, and his cultivation was also at the early stage of the 8th-level spirit embryo realm. His bloodline was the same as Wang Fenshen's, a 7th-level deity bloodline. Dongfang Yu's overall strength was even slightly stronger than Wang Fenshen's. However, AO2 was even stronger. AO2 had more than 70% of a true dragon's bloodline, almost 80%. He had transformed into a flood dragon and was fighting Dongfang Yu like a real dragon. The 2 of them fought for more than 50 moves. In the end, Dongfang Yu was defeated and admitted defeat. She had lost 90% of her luck. Meanwhile, AO2's fate energy rose greatly, and the length of his fate dragon broke through 300 meters. Chapter 969. 969 Chapter 969 Top 4. The battle continued. When AO2 and Dongfang Yu descended from the sky, 2 beams of light shot out. One landed on the Sky Corps sect's corpse warrior, while the other landed on the Divine Emperor. The Emperor God was about to fight. At this moment, everyone was highly focused. The Emperor God was considered the top genius in the East Baron. How powerful was he? In the battle for Providence, he had not met any decent opponents. Those who had encountered him were all easily killed. His strength was simply unfathomable in everyone's hearts. Now, could Corpse Warrior, ranked 4th on the list of top 1,000 talents, force the Emperor God to show his true strength? Everyone was filled with anticipation. Even Lu Ming was in high spirits. In his mind, the Emperor God was his ultimate opponent. 2 figures landed on the fighting ring. Shizhon's eyes were filled with solemnness. Just admit defeat. The Emperor God's indifferent voice was heard. He was straight and handsome. Just by standing there, he had the aura of a king. There was a kind of aura that could swallow the world and was invincible. Yes, the Emperor God had never been defeated by the younger generation. He was a heaven's favorite who had the potential to become an emperor in the future. The last heaven's favorite who was thought to have the potential to become an emperor was Yang Guangtu, and that had been 100 years ago. He was telling the Corpse Warrior to admit defeat. In my heart, I've never admitted defeat. Even if it's you, God Emperor. A strong battle intent appeared in the eyes of the Corpse Warrior. I'll defeat you in 10 moves. The Emperor God's indifferent voice was filled with great confidence. Bang! He took a step forward, and a shocking sword chi burst out from his body and shot into the sky. A terrifying sword power spread out towards Corpse Battle. Roar! With a loud roar, Corpse Warrior directly burst out his bloodline. It was a skeleton, a huge skeleton shaped like a huge elephant. The skeleton of an ancient war elephant. Someone muttered as he recognized the skeleton. It was a skeleton formed by a powerful divine beast with 7 golden chakra rings. It was also a divine level rank 7 bloodline. Shizhon performed the bloodline fusion and turned into a skeleton of an ancient war elephant. He stepped on the ground and attacked the Emperor God with amazing power. However, the Emperor God's eyes were still calm. Buzz! The sound of a sword rang out as a purple-gold sword light shot into the sky. It was filled with a luxurious aura. Boom! The purple-gold sword chi crossed dozens of miles and slashed at the ancient war elephant skeleton. With a terrifying boom, the sword chi shot out in all directions, and the ancient war elephant skeleton was forced to retreat. Buzz! Buzz! And NBSB, whoosh! The sound of the sword rang out continuously, and sword chi burst out one after another. Each one was more terrifying than the previous one, and it continuously slashed towards the ancient war elephant skeleton. The ancient war elephant roared and used all its strength to fight against the Emperor God's sword chi. However, with every strike it received, it would be forced back 5 miles. After 9 strikes, the ancient war elephant had retreated nearly 50 miles. Then, with a bang, the ancient war elephant exploded and turned back into a corpse warrior. The corpse warrior's face was pale and he spat out blood. His body trembled as if he couldn't even stand. His eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. "I admit defeat." Corpse warrior heaved a long sigh. With corpse warrior's surrender, everyone heaved a sigh of relief and looked at the Emperor God in shock. He was too powerful. The Emperor God was too powerful. He said that he would defeat the corpse in 10 moves, and he really only used 10 moves from start to finish, and the corpse admitted defeat. The Emperor God hadn't even performed the bloodline fusion. The Emperor God is too powerful. No one can defeat him. Even AO2 and Xue Jianyi are no match for him. That's right. Until now, I don't even know how much combat strength he has used. It's truly terrifying and unfathomable. Many people were discussing in shock. Even the supreme beings could no longer remain calm. Only the 3 sovereigns remained calm. On the grandstand, Xue Jianyi and AO2's eyes were extremely solemn. Lu Ming's eyes were solemn. "Lu Ming, are you confident in defeating the Emperor Gods?" Du Songjue asked Lu Ming in a low voice. "I'm not confident." Lu Ming shook his head. He wasn't confident. Even if he used all his power, he still wouldn't be confident. Corpse Warrior's combat strength was no weaker than Wang Fenshen's, but he was still easily defeated by the Emperor God. His combat strength was simply unfathomable. His cultivation should still be at the 8th level of the spirit embryo realm, but he should have reached the peak of the 8th level. However, I'm not too sure about the martial techniques he cultivates and the level of his bloodline, Yang Kuangtu said. "You've been in the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace for so many years, yet you're still not clear about this," Du Songjue said. Yang Kuangtu shook his head and said, "Di Shen has been secretly trained by Di Yi. I know little about him. Lu Ming, if you really can't defeat Di Shen, just admit defeat." Finally, Yang Kuangtu said to Lu Ming. Lu Ming's eyes flashed but he did not answer. "Are you really no match for him? What if I make another breakthrough?" Lu Ming had many thoughts in his mind. "Unfortunately, I'm still a little short. It's getting harder and harder to raise my cultivation." Lu Ming pondered secretly. The bloodline of the 9 dragons continued to refine Wang Fenshen's blood essence. At this time, the refinement was almost complete, but his cultivation was still at the peak of the 7th level spirit embryo realm. According to Yang Kuangtu, the Emperor God's cultivation was at the peak of the 8th level spirit embryo realm. If Lu Ming's cultivation also broke through to the 8th level spirit embryo realm, he would be more confident. Lu Ming was confident that he was not afraid of anyone at the same level. "Then let's start refining the raw gemstones." At the thought of this, a large number of raw gemstones appeared in Lu Ming's hands. The devouring power in his palms burst forth and devoured the large number of raw gemstones, starting to refine them. The Emperor God won and took 90% of Corpse Warrior's luck, returning to the stands. The next battle was between Bloodsword 1 and Feng Xian of the Sky Demon Valley. Feng Xian of the Sky Demon Valley had the Phoenix bloodline and had also reached more than 70% of her power. She was extremely powerful and fast. She was fighting against Xue Jianyi at the peak. This battle could be said to be the most intense of the 4. The 2 of them exchanged a full 200 moves before the victor was decided. In the end, Bloodsword won by a small margin. At this point, the strongest top 4 had appeared. They were Lu Ming, the Emperor God, AO2, and Blood Sword 1. Next, it was the battle between the four of them. After these few battles, Lu Ming had a rough idea of everyone's abilities. Dong Fangyu, Corpse Warrior, and Wang Fenshen's strength were very close and on the same level. As for Feng Xian, she was slightly stronger than the three of them, not much weaker than Blood Sword 1. Blood Sword 1, AO2, and Feng Xian should be on the same level. On the other hand, the Emperor God was unfathomable and difficult to predict. Lu Ming's thoughts were similar to most of the people. In other people's hearts, Lu Ming's abilities were placed on the same level as Blood Sword 1, AO2, and Feng Xian. Lu Ming could kill Wang Fenshen, but if Blood Sword 1, AO2, and the others were to unleash their full power, they could also kill Wang Fenshen. However, there was no doubt that the Emperor God was placed in the most powerful position. Chapter 970. 970 The Great Battle against AO2. Among the four of them, Di Shen, Xue Jianyi, and AO2 had long been known as the most powerful representatives of the younger generation in the East Baron. Lu Ming, on the other hand, was a dark horse. What really made him famous in the Eastern Baron territory was the battle in Nine Dragons. That battle had involved too many experts. In the ancient Saint dynasty of the Central Continent, the supremes of the six great ancient families, Yang Guangtu, Nine Sons Supreme, and even Martial Emperor Di Yi. After this battle, Lu Ming's name shook the Eastern Baron territory. However, the most famous one was that Lu Ming could control the divine nine-dragon cauldron that had never moved. As for Lu Ming's own talent, it was neglected. Many people felt that Lu Ming's talent and combat strength were not particularly top-notch. He could not even be compared to the top 100 on the list of top 1,000 talents. However, Lu Ming had overturned everyone's thoughts with his actions. As it turned out, Lu Ming's talent was unparalleled. He was no weaker than anyone else. As a dark horse, he had rushed into the top 4 and killed Luo Tian and Wang Fenshen. Now, he was going to fight with the three most powerful Heaven's favorites in the Eastern Baron territory. Although Lu Ming is talented, he's too young and aggressive. He doesn't know how to restrain himself. He has offended the master of the Wang family, Martial Emperor Di Yi, and even the supreme of the heavenly Demon Valley. Such a genius is destined to die. That's right. In history, there have been many Heaven's favorites with unparalleled talent. However, not many of them made it to the end and became the emperor. He was too sharp and didn't know how to restrain himself, and in the end, he died a tragic death. That's true. In my opinion, Lu Ming will end up like this in the end. Many people were discussing in low voices. At this moment, the vortex in the talisman amulet sect flickered and a figure appeared. Bai Shijin. Lu Ming was overjoyed to see Bai Shijin. Senior, how is it? Lu Ming said. Don't worry, everything has been settled. They are now in Mount Liangyi, Bai Shijin said. Many thanks, Senior. Lu Ming expressed his thanks. At this moment, a ray of light fell on Lu Ming. He was about to fight. Lu Ming looked over and realized that another beam of light had landed on AO2's body. This battle was between Lu Ming and AO2. Instantly, AO2's eyes shone with a brilliant light and a shocking battle intent. Boom! AO2's burly body crashed heavily into the fighting ring. His entire body was filled with a violent aura. Lu Ming took a step forward and appeared on the fighting ring, standing opposite AO2. Bai Shijin was extremely surprised. He didn't know what had happened, but after understanding it, he was even more shocked. He did not expect that Lu Ming would be able to kill Wang Fenshen and fight against AO2. Lu Ming, it's such a waste of the nine-dragon bloodline in you. Why don't you hand it over to me? I'll definitely make it flourish. AO2 licked his lips, and a greedy look appeared on his face. Okay, but Di is also eyeing the nine-dragon bloodline. If I give it to you, aren't you afraid that he will target you? Lu Ming smiled faintly. AO2's expression changed drastically, and his eyes flickered with uncertainty. If that was the case, he would be targeted by Martial Emperor Di after obtaining the bloodline of the Nine Dragons. He would not be able to live in peace. Even the supreme of the Flood Dragon tribe, or even the Demon Emperor, might not be able to protect him. His heart turned cold at this thought. Hihi, looks like you don't dare to take it. You really don't have the guts. Come, let's fight. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with fighting spirit, and the essential core in his body was boiling. Roar! Roar! Two dragon roars rang out at the same time. One of them came from AO2, who transformed into a flood dragon. The other dragon's roar came from Lu Ming's body. He had burst out with dragon energy. Lu Ming's body was covered in a layer of purple-gold scales. He took a step forward and charged toward AO2. Golden storm splitting slash. AO2 opened his mouth and a dark golden ray of light burst out from it, slashing toward Lu Ming. This ray of light was like a blade ray, but it was sharper and more terrifying. Lu Ming threw a punch and it collided with the dark golden light. Boom! There was a loud explosion. Lu Ming's body trembled and he retreated 100 meters before he could stabilize himself. On his arm, it was as if there were countless sharp forces cutting at his scales, causing sparks to fly in all directions. What a powerful metal attribute concept! He circulated his true essence and shook it, scattering the sharp force covering his arm. AO2 had more than 70% of the true dragon's bloodline. He was born with the control of the metal element, and he could use it to a terrifying extent. The light from the blade just now was the combination of the metal element concept and AO2's demonic power. It was extremely terrifying. Golden storm splitting slash. AO2 roared again. This time, 9 beams of dark golden light shot out from his mouth, cutting through the air and slashing toward Lu Ming. Boom! Lu Ming instantly released 2 more bursts of dragon energy. In total, he released 3 more bursts of dragon energy and his strength increased greatly. Lu Ming was like a human-shaped T-Rex as he charged towards AO2. He activated the prison-suppressing heaven technique and threw out a series of punches. Bang! 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 There were 9 consecutive explosions, and the 9 dark golden rays of light were destroyed by Lu Ming. Lu Ming continued to rush toward AO2. Golden gilded dragon claw. One of AO2's dragon claws had turned completely dark gold, as if it had been cast from dark gold. Whoosh! He stretched out his dark golden dragon claw and swiped at Lu Ming. Clang! Lu Ming threw a punch and it collided with the dark golden dragon claw, creating a terrifying boom. It was like 2 iron hammers had collided, forming a strong storm that swept in all directions. Lu Ming's body trembled and he drifted backward for 100 meters. He landed on the ground and took 9 steps back. What a terrifying power, what a terrifying attack. Is this a flood dragon with over 70% purity? Lu Ming was shocked. AO2's level should be at the middle stage of the 8th tier of the 7th level, which was equivalent to the middle stage of the 8th tier of the spirit embryo realm. His strength and attack power were extremely powerful and terrifying. And this was only a flood dragon with more than 70% purity. If it was a pure-blooded true dragon, how terrifying and powerful would it be? Nowadays, there were very few pure-blooded divine beasts in the divine wilderness continent. It was said that there were quite a few in ancient times. How could such pure-blooded divine beasts, the pride of the human race, compete with them? Now, the only known thing in the East continent was that the Demon Emperor was a pureblood. I wonder if there are many pure-blooded divine beasts in the mysterious overseas continent. Lu Ming, you're not my match. AO2 roared, interrupting Lu Ming's jumbled thoughts. Bang! Bang! The flood dragon stomped its 4 claws on the ground and charged toward Lu Ming. Is that so? The corners of Lu Ming's lips curled into a cold smile. The 9 dragon bloodline emerged. The next moment, Lu Ming transformed into 9 dragons. At the same time, another dragon energy burst out from his body, making it 4 in total. A vast dragon's might filled the air and surged toward AO2. AO2's body trembled slightly, and a hint of fear actually appeared in his eyes. That's right, this was an instinct that came from AO2. It was a fear he had for those in a higher position. No matter if it was a demonic beast or a divine beast, the hierarchy was extremely strict. Bloodline was superior, and there were layers of suppression. AO2 only had the bloodline of the true dragon, but he was not a true dragon yet. However, The 9 dragons were existences that were even more powerful than the true dragon. They were one of the top 10 war beasts, and the dragon's might that emanated from the 9 dragons made AO2 feel an instinctive fear. Chapter 971. 971 Clash of Swords. Roar. The 9 dragons let out long roars, and their dragon might permeated the air. Their 9 claws stepped on the air as they pounced toward Ao Sha. AO2 followed suit and roared. He overcame the fear in his heart and pounced toward Lu Ming. The Flood Dragon and the 9 dragons immediately fought each other on the fighting ring. AO2 had unleashed his metal element mentality to the extreme. His metal element mentality was definitely equivalent to the 4th level. His entire body was as hard as metal, and his dragon claws seemed to be made of dark gold. They were incomparably hard and could break anything. Every move had terrifying power. As for Lu Ming, he had 4 types of concepts surrounding him. When they were fused together, the power was equally terrifying. At the same time, Lu Ming burst forth with 4 streams of dragon energy and circulated the prison-suppressing heaven technique. Every inch of his muscles was able to burst forth with the power of the prison-suppressing heaven technique. Every muscle on his body was frighteningly powerful, and every claw had the power to suppress everything. Boom! 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 The 2 dragons intertwined with each other and continuously attacked each other. It was extremely barbaric, and it made people feel as if they had returned to ancient times, where divine beasts fought for hegemony and true dragons fought in chaos. Poochie. The 9 dragons had 9 claws, and AO2 found it difficult to block all of them. His body was grabbed by the claws of the 9 dragons, and they tore at him with all their might. Instantly, his scales were sent flying, and a large piece of his flesh was torn off, causing blood to flow out. AO2 retaliated with all his might in pain, tearing off a piece of the 9 dragons' bodies as well. However, his claws had almost been shattered. Boom! The bodies of the 9 dragons seemed to be extremely heavy. They pressed down on AO2, causing him to crash into the fighting ring, and the sound of bones breaking could be heard. The 2 of them exchanged dozens of moves. Lu Ming's courage grew as the battle progressed and he gradually gained the upper hand. In the end, AO2 was still affected by the aura of the 9 dragons. He was somewhat afraid, and the more he fought, the more fearful he became. He was already afraid. How could he be Lu Ming's match? Blood splattered everywhere as AO2 let out a blood-curdling screech. His body had been torn apart by the claws of the 9 dragons. He struggled with all his might, and in the end, he managed to escape. However, he left behind a large piece of flood dragon meat, which was drenched in blood. Flood dragon meat that contains 70% of a true dragon's concentration. Good stuff, leave it for barbecue. The 9 dragons opened their mouths and Lu Ming's voice was heard. Then, the piece of flood dragon meat disappeared. Lu Ming, that's good stuff. Save a portion for me later. On the grandstand, Fatty shouted, almost drooling. AO2's lungs nearly exploded from anger. He could not wait to swallow Lu Ming and the fatty. Fatty, that's too little. These are mine, I'll get more later. Lu Ming shouted and pounced toward AO2 again. I admit defeat. AO2 suddenly roared. He was extremely unwilling to accept this. He knew that if he continued fighting, he would definitely lose and would most likely have to pay more flood dragon meat. You're admitting defeat. Lu Ming was speechless. He stopped and transformed back into his human form. He had a look of pity on his face as his eyes darted around AO2's body. AO2 had also transformed into his human form, and his expression was extremely unsightly. He wasn't seriously injured, but his face looked worse than if he had been seriously injured. This battle, he fought too sullenly. The Dragon of Fate above Lu Ming's head devoured 90% of AO2's Dragon of Fate. It expanded again, exceeding 2,000 feet and approaching 3,000 feet. Such a huge fate dragon was rarely seen since ancient times. Lu Ming flew up to the grandstand. Fatty, it's a pity that this guy admitted defeat early. You don't have a share. Lu Ming sighed. Damn it, no way, we'll split that piece equally. The fat man shouted. AO2, who was flying toward the grandstand, trembled and almost fell off the stage. AO2 flew back to the grandstand, and his expression was extremely grim. The Flood Dragon Sovereign's complexion wasn't any better than AO2's, and it was as black as charcoal. Many people were shocked that Lu Ming had won the battle. In this way, Lu Ming had entered the final battle. The next battle was between Di Shen and Bloodsword. The winner would fight Lu Ming in the final battle. Most of them thought that between God Emperor and Bloodsword, God Emperor would win. In that case, the final battle would be between Lu Ming and the Emperor God. That would be interesting. The light flashed and enveloped the Emperor God and Bloodsword. The two of them flew onto the fighting ring. "Do you and I still need to fight?" the Emperor God said coldly. Many people's hearts skipped a beat. From the Emperor's tone, could it be that he had fought with the Bloodsword before? However, he had never heard of such a rumor. "I was no match for him in the battle 3 years ago, but that might not be the case now." Bloodsword's body was filled with a shocking amount of blood chi, and his eyes were as red as blood diamonds. The crowd was shocked. Di Shen and Xue Jianyi had fought 3 years ago. It seemed that Xue Jianyi had lost. 3 years ago, you were no match for me. From now on, you will never be my match. The Emperor God's voice came out, showing great confidence. "We'll know after the battle." Die. Bloodsword 1 shouted and stepped forward. A terrible sword power burst out from his body and filled the air. This was the sword concept. The Bloodsword took a step forward, and sword intent filled the air. Buzz. The Emperor God's body also produced a sword cry. The next moment, a powerful sword power burst out. It was also sword concept. Di Shen and Xue Jianyi had both comprehended the sword mentality. Bang! Bang! The two of them were taking steps, and as they stepped forward, their sword intent soared. Buzz! And NBSB, whoosh! Their sword intents crossed dozens of miles and clashed in the air. The air between the two actually kept exploding with rumbles and sword hums, and sparks flew in all directions. Everyone's expression was grave. This kind of sword intent was too terrifying. The two hadn't even made a move, but just the overflowing sword intent could easily kill a 7th-level spirit embryo realm expert. Whoosh! Whoosh! Suddenly, the two of them took a step forward, and their bodies turned into a sword light. They cut through the void and slashed at each other. Clang! The two sword radiances clashed in the air, creating a loud boom. Sword chi shot out in all directions, and the two sword radiances were forced back by the attack before clashing again. Clang! Clang! In an instant, the two of them had exchanged dozens of moves. Those with lower cultivation couldn't even see the two figures. They could only see two sword lights clashing in the air. A golden sword light and a blood-red sword light. But at this moment, the golden sword radiance surged and struck the blood-red sword radiance away. Divine Emperor, peak of the 8th-level spirit embryo realm. Bloodsword 1, late stage of the 8th-level spirit embryo realm. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He could tell their cultivation level. Moreover, both of their sword concepts had reached the 4th level. This was a collision of 4th-level sword concepts. However, it was obvious that the Emperor God's cultivation was stronger. He managed to push back Bloodsword 1. The blood-red sword light flew back, and Bloodsword 1's body appeared. At this moment, the blood-red light on his body was getting brighter and brighter. Bloodsword, unsheath. Bloodsword pinched his fingers and waved his hand. Suddenly, a blood-red combat sword flew out from his glabella. The combat sword grew to more than 10 meters in size. Surprisingly, when the combat sword grew larger, it split into 2, then 4, and finally into 16 huge blood-red combat swords, which flew around Bloodsword. Kill! Kill! Bloodsword 1 shouted and waved his fingers. The 16 combat swords danced and turned into 16 sword lights, attacking the Emperor God. The most terrifying thing was not the 16 combat swords, but the endless sword chi that was stimulated as the combat swords flew. Chapter 972. 972 Concept of Space. The 16 blood-red combat swords, wrapped in endless sword chi, attacked the Emperor God. At that moment, the Emperor God's face turned red. He felt his blood boiling. That's the mentality of blood. Blood Sword 1 has actually combined the mentality of blood and the mentality of sword into one, someone exclaimed. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. Xue Jianyi was indeed the second-ranked genius on the list of top 1,000 talents. He was extremely powerful. Not only had he comprehended two powerful intents, but he had also fused them together. Moreover, Lu Ming could tell that Blood Sword 1's blood and sword concepts had both reached the 4th level. How terrifying was the fusion of two 4th-level concepts. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The combination of the two essences triggered thousands of sword chi, which completely covered the Emperor God and blocked his way out. Golden sword chi gushed out of the Emperor God's body and he kept slashing. Every time he slashed, endless sword chi would be destroyed, but more blood-red sword chi would replace it. For a moment, the Emperor God was actually at a disadvantage. It can't be. The Emperor God is at a disadvantage. Is he going to be defeated? Blood Sword 1 and 2 wills have reached level 4, and he has successfully integrated them. He is indeed powerful, but the Emperor God should have more tricks up his sleeve. The crowd was in a heated discussion. At that moment, the Emperor God frowned slightly. He had given up on blocking the sword chi and let it pierce his body. Many people's hearts were in their throats. They didn't understand what the Emperor God meant. And NBSB, whoosh, whoosh. As the sword light pierced through, the Emperor God's figure collapsed. It was just a phantom. Then, everyone saw that the Emperor God's body had already appeared dozens of meters away. As soon as his figure appeared, sword chi stabbed at him from all directions. However, he took a step forward as if he was taking a stroll in his courtyard. His figure suddenly disappeared and reappeared dozens of meters away the next moment. Just like that, his figure continued to flash, and the endless sword chi from all directions could do nothing to him. Transient step. This is the legendary transient step. Someone shouted in shock. What? Instant step? How was it possible to use the instant step that was said to require one to comprehend the concept of space? Could it be that the Emperor God has comprehended the will of space? My God, it's definitely the space mentality. Exclamations of shock rang out, and those who made the noise were all from the older generation. It's actually the space concept. Bai Shijing, Yang Guangtu, and the others also gasped. Lu Ming's pupils constricted. There were thousands of types of intent realms in the world, and of course, there were also differences in their level. Among them, there were two extremely famous types of intent realms, which were the spacetime intent realm. Time and space. With a myriad of intent realms, time and space were the kings. The time and space intents were the kings of the 10 million intents, so one could see how terrifying they were. However, the Emperor God had actually comprehended the concept of space. I can't believe that the Divine Emperor has comprehended the space mentality and successfully integrated it with the sword mentality. He's indeed the number one on the list of top 1,000 talents. However, his space mentality should only be at the complete stage of level 3 and hasn't broken through to the 4th level. Otherwise, he'd be invincible. Bai Shijin's eyes were solemn. The Emperor God's display of space will made Blood Sword's eyes extremely serious. He kept waving his sword fingers, launching a storm of attacks. However, the Emperor God's body flashed, and the sword chi around him could not do anything to him. Whoosh! Suddenly, the Emperor God slashed out a sword in the air. This sword was only casually swung at the air, as if it was not aimed at Blood Sword 1. However, Blood Sword 1's expression suddenly changed and he quickly retreated. Whoosh! Just as Blood Sword 1 was retreating, a sword light slashed at the spot where he had just been standing. The Emperor God's attack could penetrate the void and launch a terrible attack on Blood Sword. It was strange and terrifying. If the Emperor God became an assassin, he would be the most terrifying assassin in the world. Whoosh! Whoosh! The Emperor God's sword kept slashing out of the air. Then, sword light appeared around Blood Sword 1 and slashed at him. Blood Sword rapidly retreated. The Emperor God used transient step and chased after Blood Sword. The distance between them was getting closer and closer. It seems like the Emperor God's attack has a distance limit. Lu Ming's eyes flickered and he understood what was going on. There should be a distance limit to the space will of the Emperor God. If the distance was too far, his sword chi couldn't pass through the space to attack others, which was normal. If there was no limit, he could take people's heads from hundreds of millions of miles away, which was more than terrifying. However, as Emperor God's cultivation and space concept improved, the distance would become longer and longer. The further it went, the more terrifying it would be. Time and space were kings. This was not just a saying. As the distance between the two drew closer, the blood sword was at a disadvantage and could be defeated at any time. Buzz. At this moment, blood sword's spine glowed, and a blood-red combat sword floated above his head. 7 golden chakras surrounded the combat sword. This was Blood Sword One's bloodline, a 7th-level divine bloodline. The blood sword merged with his bloodline and turned into a huge blood-red sword. The sword chi shot up into the sky and slashed out. The space trembled and the sword chi that the Emperor God attacked him with was all shattered. Buzz. The blood-red sword slashed at the Emperor God. Defeat. Tiangang Emperor Sword. The Emperor God strode forward and spat out a word coldly. He pointed his sword forward and slashed down. Huala. At this moment, the space above Blood Sword Yi's head seemed to shatter as boundless sword chi slashed down towards Blood Sword Yi. That's a low-grade divine level martial technique, and it's a low-grade divine level bloodline martial technique. A supreme martial artist cried out in shock. Everyone present was shocked and their eyes widened. The divine martial technique was a low-grade divine bloodline martial technique. The Emperor God had actually comprehended such a terrifying martial technique from his bloodline. He was not even in the spiritual God realm. Even among the fearsome powerhouses of the spiritual God realm, there were many who had not comprehended God-level martial techniques. Buzz. Buzz. And NBSB. Whoosh. Countless terrifying sword chi fell on Blood Sword One's sword. The blood-red combat sword trembled violently, but in just a dozen breaths, the huge combat sword seemed to be unable to withstand it. The power of a divine-level martial technique was too strong. Break. A roar came from the blood sword, and the blood-red sword chi soared into the sky. The blood-red sword began to spin rapidly, like a drill, and rushed out of the area covered by the sword chi. Then, with a flash of bloodlight, it turned back into Blood Sword One. At this moment, Xue Jian was in a sorry state. His breath was shallow, his face was pale, and there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. I've lost. Blood Sword One sighed and admitted defeat to Di Shen. With Blood Sword One's surrender, the Emperor God's aura was withdrawn. At the same time, the Fate Dragon above Blood Sword One's head had devoured 90% of the Fate Dragon. Many people in the surroundings also sighed. It wasn't that Blood Sword Yi wasn't strong enough, but that Emperor God was too strong. However, after this battle, everyone finally saw part of the Emperor God's strength. With a cultivation at the peak of the 8th-level spirit embryo realm, he had grasped the space and sword concepts. Furthermore, he had comprehended a low-grade divine bloodline martial technique. Such strength was truly astonishing. Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, Yang Kuangtu, Bai Chishue, Fatty and the others all looked very serious. The Emperor God was too powerful. Could Lu Ming fight him? Chapter 973. 973 Lu Ming vs. the Emperor God. Lu Ming, if you can't win, feel free to admit defeat. Your results are already enough. I believe no one will object to you becoming an official Zongzi if you come in second. Bai Shijin said to Lu Ming in a low voice. That's right, Lu Ming. Do your best. Du Songjue also warned in a low voice. Seniors, don't worry. Lu Ming knows what to do. Lu Ming smiled faintly. It seemed that no one thought that he could win. Bai Shijin and Du Songjue had said it tactfully, but the meaning was obvious. They all thought that he could not win. The feeling of being looked down upon by others was not a good feeling. Lu Ming's eyes flashed with a sharp glint. How would he know if he didn't fight? At this moment, the Emperor God also looked at Lu Ming. Then, he stepped forward and landed on the stands. There was only one last battle left, but the light of the battle did not fall on Lu Ming and the Emperor God. It was obvious that the ancient city of Providence was very humane and gave the Emperor God time to rest and recover. The Emperor God closed his eyes and regulated his breathing. Half an hour later, he opened his eyes. Buzz. Buzz. 2 rays of light fell on Lu Ming and the Emperor God. The Battle of the Peak began. Buzz. Buzz. Lu Ming and Di Shen moved almost at the same time. In a flash, they landed on the fighting ring, facing each other. Above Lu Ming's head, a 3,000-foot-long dragon of fate was suspended. Above the Emperor God's head, the dragon of fate had also reached more than 260 feet, only a few hundred feet away from Lu Ming's dragon of fate. The 2 fate dragons were facing each other. The Emperor God's eyes were calm and indifferent. He looked at Lu Ming and said, "Lu Ming, you've seen my abilities. Do you think there's still a need to fight?" His voice was calm, but it was filled with confidence. "How do you know you're going to win if you haven't fought?" Lu Ming smiled faintly. "All right, then today, I'll completely destroy your confidence." The Emperor God's eyes shone with a sharp light. "Originally, I wanted to kill you today, but His Majesty told me not to kill you. So, I'll spare you today." "Oh, is that so?" Lu Ming's gaze flickered. Emperor God's intention was simple. He had wanted to have a life-and-death battle with Lu Ming and kill him in one battle, but Martial Emperor Di told him not to kill Lu Ming. It was obvious that Martial Emperor Di wanted to capture Lu Ming alive and take his 9-dragon bloodline. Emperor God, the first place on the list of top 1,000 talents, will have a new master. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with determination. Today, no matter what, Lu Ming had to win. If he could not even defeat Di Shen or Di, who was a junior, how could he fight against Di? Bang! 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 Lu Ming strode toward Di Shen. With every step he took, the aura on Lu Ming's body became more violent. 4 intense revolvered around him as his true essence circulated. His dragon power burst forth, and his skin was covered in a layer of dragon power. 1, 2, 3. Lu Ming released 3 bursts of dragon energy in one go. Slash. The Emperor God's body was filled with sword will and a vast sword power burst out. He took a step forward and approached Lu Ming at a great speed. A combat sword appeared in his hand and he slashed. Sword intent bloomed, and one after another, terrifying sword light slashed at Lu Ming. Boom! 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 Lu Ming threw more than a dozen punches in a row. With each punch, a sword gleam was shattered. After a dozen punches, more than a dozen sword gleams were shattered. "Emperor God, use your full strength. You can't defeat me like this," Lu Ming shouted, the fighting spirit in his eyes growing stronger. "Since that's the case, I'll fulfill your wish." The Emperor God's indifferent voice came out, and his aura became stronger. His cultivation at the peak of the 8th level of the spirit embryo realm was undoubtedly revealed. Buzz. He took a step forward and his figure seemed to be shuttling through space. In the next moment, he appeared dozens of meters away and headed toward Lu Ming at top speed. At the same time, he slashed his sword in the air. At this moment, all the hair on Lu Ming's body stood on end. A strong sense of danger rose in his heart. Buzz. In the nick of time, Lu Ming stomped his feet and retreated rapidly. As soon as Lu Ming retreated, a sword gleam slashed at the spot where he had been standing just now. It slashed the fighting ring, causing sparks to fly. "Your spiritual sense is quite sharp, but I'll see how many moves you can block," the Emperor God said coldly and wielded his sword. In an instant, he slashed out dozens of times. Lu Ming's sense of danger grew stronger. Without any hesitation, he started to run wildly on the fighting ring. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Wherever Lu Ming ran past, there would be sword gleams slashing out. Every sword almost cut Lu Ming. "Only running? But in front of me, you don't even have the right to run," the Emperor God snorted coldly and stomped. His figure appeared on the fighting ring like a phantom, as if he was traveling through the void. In a few breaths, he was close to Lu Ming. The combat sword slashed out and countless sword gleams appeared around Lu Ming, blocking all his escape routes. "Since I can't dodge, I'll use my strength to blow it up." Lu Ming's eyes gleamed with ferocity. The last 3 dragon energies in his body exploded. There were a total of 6 dragon energies, and Lu Ming used all of them. His strength increased rapidly. Lu Ming threw dozens of punches in all directions. Boom, boom, boom. All the sword lights around him shattered. However, Lu Ming did not stop. He continued to throw punches. With every punch, a terrifying power exploded, completely distorting and compressing the space. The Emperor God's sword light was crushed before it could leave the space. The Emperor God's eyes turned cold. He kept swinging his combat sword while Lu Ming's fist kept punching the air. Every time it struck, it shattered the Emperor God's sword light. Haha, Lu Ming, this move is not bad. Yang Guangtu laughed. Although the Emperor God's sword can travel through the void and change unpredictably, there will definitely be fluctuations in the space when the sword light is about to be slashed. As long as Lu Ming senses the fluctuations, he will bombard the space with powerful fist force and distort it. Then, the Emperor God's sword light will not be able to be slashed. Supreme Master Nine Suns nodded in agreement. Many big shots nodded to Themslevers as they understood what was going on, but they were also secretly shocked. It wasn't difficult to sense the spatial fluctuations, but the key was to block them. That was the difficult part. Lu Ming's every punch was terrifyingly powerful. They discovered that the power that Lu Ming was displaying now was stronger than when he was fighting AO2. When Lu Ming was fighting with AO2 just now, he had actually concealed his strength. This shocked them. Your strength is not bad, so I'll defeat you face to face. The Emperor God snorted coldly. He stopped drawing his sword. He took a step forward and his figure was like a flickering light and a fleeting shadow. He was unbelievably fast and approached Lu Ming in an instant. Having comprehended the space concept, his speed was equally terrifying. Lu Ming realized that even if he used the 9 dragons' heaven treading steps, he would still be slower. As he approached Lu Ming, a terrible sword power burst out of the Emperor God's body. The mighty sword power pressed down on Lu Ming, and the terrible sword light slashed at Lu Ming. The void was distorted and even cracked. The power of this sword was extremely terrifying. The combination of the space and sword mentality made the power of the sword reach its peak. Even if Lu Ming wanted to retreat, he had no way out. If he retreated, he would face an even more violent attack from the Emperor God. The only way was to face them head-on. Chapter 974. 974 Chapter 974 Difficult Battle. A crazed look appeared in Lu Ming's eyes. He circulated his essential core frantically and pushed the prison-suppressing heaven technique to 50% of its power. Then, he threw a punch. Boom. The fist and the sword chi collided, creating a terrifying boom. The endless sword chi scattered in all directions, as did the fist radiance. However, they were blocked by an invisible force at the edge of the fighting ring and disappeared. Bang! 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 Lu Ming took 3 consecutive steps back, his chi and blood surging. That's right. Then, take another strike of mine. Tiangang Emperor Sword. The Emperor God let out a long roar and slashed down again. As he swung his sword, endless sword light burst forth, carrying with it the intention to cut through space, slashing toward Lu Ming. It was the Tiangang Emperor Sword, a low-grade divine bloodline martial technique. Di Shun had used this move to defeat Bloodsword 1. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the fighting ring. They wanted to see how Lu Ming would resist this move. A dragon's roar was heard and 9 dragons appeared. Lu Ming transformed into 9 dragons. Boom, boom, boom. The 9 claws of the 9 dragons continued to grab at it, pushing the prison-suppressing heaven technique to 60%. The sound of explosions continued to ring out. Most of the sword light was blocked, but there were still a few that were not blocked. They landed on the 9 dragons, and their scales were instantly cut open. Deep wounds appeared on the 9 dragons' bodies, and blood flowed out. But in the end, it was still blocked by Lu Ming. He can actually block the divine-level martial technique of the Emperor God. Could it be that Lu Ming is also using a divine-level martial technique? Someone exclaimed in disbelief. Even Bloodsword 1 was defeated by this move. It was unbelievable that Lu Ming could block it. It's definitely a god-tier martial technique. There's no mistake, a supreme martial artist said. Everyone was in disbelief. Lu Ming had also mastered a divine-level martial arts technique. It was too shocking. The situation is not good for Lu Ming. Although he has also mastered the divine-level martial technique, with his cultivation, he can't exert the full power of the divine-level martial technique at all. However, the Emperor God's cultivation is stronger, and the power of the divine-level martial technique is stronger, Yang Guangtu said worriedly. The others didn't say anything, but their expressions were grave. On the battle stage, the Emperor God's eyes shone with a shocking, sharp, and terrifying light. His voice was no longer indifferent, but also full of sharpness. Lu Ming, I didn't expect you to be able to take this move of mine. You're not bad. Let's see how you're going to take it next. Tiangang Emperor's sword, one sword to conquer the world. The Emperor God's entire body seemed to turn golden like a golden sun. He slashed out with the combat sword in his hand. The space in all directions was distorted and finally cracked. It was brought along by the Emperor God's sword light and wrapped together as it slashed toward Lu Ming. It was reasonable to say that only spiritual god masters could cut open space. However, there was obviously a gap between an emperor god and a spiritual god, but he could cut open space. This did not mean that his combat strength had reached the level of a spiritual god, but it was because of his space concept. Driven by the concept of space, it cut through the space and charged toward Lu Ming with the power of space cutting. Space twisted, and sword light was everywhere. Lu Ming fought back with all his might. His dragon claws kept striking out and his dragon tail lashed out like a divine whip. However, there were too many sword lights in the surroundings, and their power was too strong. Given Lu Ming's abilities, he could not block all of them. The extremely sharp sword qi swam around Lu Ming's body, cutting open wounds on his body. Lu Ming did not care about his injuries. He fought back with all his might and fought the Emperor God. Refine, refine. At the same time, Lu Ming was constantly refining the energy of the origin stone to break through to the next realm. He had already secretly ordered 9 dragons to swallow more than 200,000 raw stones. He wanted to fight while breaking through to the next realm. He felt that he was about to reach the 8th level spirit embryo realm soon. The Emperor God was too powerful. If Lu Ming did not make a breakthrough in his realm, it would be difficult to defeat him. The Emperor God's 2 intents were level 4 sword intent and level 3 space intent. The fusion of the 2 intents was not any weaker than Lu Ming's 4 intents. Moreover, the Emperor God also mastered a divine-level martial technique and cultivated a divine-level cultivation technique. It was an extremely powerful divine-level cultivation technique and his vital essence was extremely rich. Lu Ming did not have any advantage in all these. Lu Ming had the support of the dragon power, but he felt that the Emperor God was also supported by a mysterious power, which was extremely powerful and unstoppable. Lu Ming did not have the advantage in any of these aspects. In terms of cultivation, Lu Ming was at a disadvantage. Lu Ming did his best and fought dozens of moves with the Emperor God. At this moment, the scales on the 9 dragons' bodies had cracked and fallen off. They were covered with sword marks and blood was flowing out. It was a terrible sight. Lu Ming, Bai Chixue clenched her fists and her eyes were filled with a layer of mist. She was extremely worried. Fatty, Ruan Tingting, and the others did not say anything. They stared at the fighting ring and were extremely worried. However, the people from the Empyrean Heavenly Divine Palace, the Heavenly Demon Valley, and the Heavenly Corpse sect were gloating. Lu Ming is going to lose. He's no match for the Emperor God. What is he waiting for if he doesn't admit defeat? He's just fighting to the death. I knew he couldn't be a match for the Emperor God. I think Lu Ming will be defeated within 10 moves. Voices came from all around. It's a pity that this is not a life-and-death battle. Lu Ming can admit defeat at any time. However, since he has offended His Majesty, Martial Emperor Di, he will die sooner or later. The patriarch of the Wang clan thought to himself. At this moment, the Emperor God's aura grew stronger and stronger. Every slash of his sword was filled with shocking sword chi. Space and sword intent combined to suppress Lu Ming. More and more wounds appeared on the 9 dragons' bodies. Refine, break. Lu Ming roared in his heart, and the essential core in his body was boiling. Suddenly, a powerful aura burst out of the 9 dragons. What? Cultivation breakthrough? How is that possible? He's actually breaking through at this time? Impossible. Voices of disbelief rang out one after another. On the grandstand, the big shots shouted in disbelief and stood up. How was it possible that Lu Ming had a breakthrough in his cultivation during the battle with the Emperor God? Unbelievable. Haha, this kid always exceeds my expectations. He has my style. Fatty grinned and was extremely excited. Yang Guangtu, Bai Shijin, and the others also revealed excited expressions. Lu Ming's move was beyond their expectations. Damn it. The Emperor God's eyes were no longer calm, and they were filled with anger and killing intent. Lu Ming had actually broken through in the middle of a great battle with him. This was a blatant humiliation to him. He was looking down on him and was using him to break through. At that moment, the Emperor God's body burst out with a strong killing intent. The bloodline of the 9 dragons is indeed amazing. A faint voice was heard. The person who spoke was Martial Emperor Di. Everyone's heart trembled, and then they came to a realization. It was not that Lu Ming was too heaven-defying. It was because of his 9-dragon bloodline that he was able to break through during the great battle. The Emperor God's heart also calmed down, but the light in his eyes became colder. Yang Guangtu, Bai Shijin, and the others secretly scolded Di for being a cunning old fox. With one sentence, he pushed the shock caused by Lu Ming to the 9-dragon bloodline, calming Di Shen's shocked heart. An emperor god who had calmed down was the most terrifying. Chapter 975. 975 Peak Confrontation, using all trump cards. Roar. Dragon roars shook the sky as the 9 dragons clawed out several times. The Emperor God's sword light was shattered. Now, the real battle has only just begun. The 9 dragons' eyes revealed a strong desire to fight, as well as a fierce look. The scales that had fallen off his body and the bloody wounds on his body that had been injured by the sword chi were healing at a speed that could be seen with the naked eye. A fierce and powerful aura was constantly emitted from the 9 dragons. Slowly, their momentum actually suppressed the Emperor God. Buzz. The sound of a sword ringing resounded throughout the ancient city of Providence. A golden combat sword appeared above the Emperor God's head. As soon as the sword appeared, it attracted everyone's attention. The golden battle sword was filled with a noble aura. A golden dragon circled around the hilt, looking extremely majestic. It was like the Emperor of Swords, its might suppressing the universe. The Emperor Sword was a bloodline that could only be passed down by the direct descendants of Di's martial Emperor bloodline. This was the second time Lu Ming had seen the Emperor Sword bloodline. He had seen it on Di Feng and now on Di Shen. Back then, Di Feng was only a level 4 divine level expert. However, the 8 dazzling golden chakras of God Emperor made countless people's eyes widen. Divine level rank 8. Another divine level rank 8 bloodline had appeared. Previously, it was Fatty who entered empty space. Now, it was Emperor God. Nest, this guy's bloodline is the same level as mine. How is this possible? I'm 10,000 times more handsome than this guy. The Fatty shouted unhappily. Only this guy could still call out. The other's eyes were very serious. The Emperor God's figure flashed and disappeared into the Emperor Sword. The Emperor trembled, and the vast sword power burst out madly, pressing toward Lu Ming. Bang! Lu Ming waved his claws and broke the vast sword force. Everyone's hearts were in their throats. They held their breath and stared at the fighting ring. They knew that the final battle was about to begin. It was beyond everyone's expectations that this battle could reach this stage. Lu Ming had actually broken through his cultivation in the middle of the battle. His combat strength had improved greatly and he had forced the Emperor God to perform the blood fusion. This battle, who would win and who would lose, was beginning to be filled with suspense. World-slaying sword. A cold voice was heard from the Emperor Sword. The Emperor Sword shook and endless golden light was emitted. The golden light was actually sword chi. Endless sword chi appeared around the Emperor Sword like a pair of sword chi wings. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In the next moment, endless sword chi shot toward the 9 dragons. Each sword chi was extremely terrifying and covered every inch of the 9 dragons. The 9 dragons roared and stomped with their 9 claws, performing the 9 dragons' heaven-treading steps. The void trembled and violent energy exploded, destroying all the sword chi. The 9 dragons twisted their bodies and pounced toward the Emperor Sword in the air. The Emperor Sword trembled and slashed at the 9 dragons with a terrifying sword intent. A dragon and a sword were fighting on the fighting ring. The roar of the sword and the cry of the dragon resounded through the world. On the fighting ring, the roar continued as the two began a fierce battle. It was difficult to determine the winner. For a moment, the two were in a stalemate and fought for hundreds of moves. More than 20 minutes had passed, and the winner had yet to be determined. According to the rules, once the battle had been going on for 30 minutes and the victor had not been decided, the ancient city of Providence would automatically determine the winner as the person who had the upper hand. But now, the two seemed to be tied. Everyone held their breath and stared at the fighting ring. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly for fear of disturbing the two people in the fighting ring. Not to mention the younger generation, even the older generation, spirit gods, and even supreme masters had never seen such a battle in their thousands of years of life. Each of these people had the potential to become a martial royal realm expert in the future. They were all rare existences that only appeared once in 100 years or even 1,000 years. If they appeared, they would be characters that could suppress an era. It was too rare for two such people to appear in the same era. 100 years ago, Yang Guangtu had appeared out of nowhere. No one in the younger generation of the Eastern Barren Territory could defeat him. He had swept away all the strong cultivators and reached the peak. Thousands of years ago, when the Supreme 9 Sons appeared, it was the same. He was invincible. However, this generation was different. There were so many geniuses and experts that they could even rival the Emperor gods. The two of them fought intensely. In the end, after an intense collision in the air, they both retreated. Buzz! The Emperor Sword trembled and actually collapsed, returning to its human form. The crowd was shocked. Was the Emperor God going to be defeated? However, the 9 dragons' bodies glowed and dispersed immediately after, turning back into Lu Ming's appearance. The power of their bloodlines seemed to have been exhausted at the same time. Lu Ming, I have to admit that you're very strong. You're the first person who has forced me to this extent. But this is it. It's time to end this. The Emperor God's eyes were filled with killing intent. A powerful aura suddenly burst out of his body, and golden flames spread out from his body. The Emperor God's aura became even more terrifying than before. Intent Realm, another kind of Intent Realm. This Intent Realm was very similar to the Fire Intent Realm. It was called the Golden Flame Intent Realm. The Emperor God had comprehended 3 intents. It seemed that his Golden Flame intent had reached the 4th level and had successfully merged with the other 2 intents. It was unbelievable that the Emperor God was still hiding his strength. Everyone was dumbfounded. Not good. Yang Guangtu, Bai Shijin, and the others' expressions changed drastically. They had never expected the Emperor God to have such a trick up his sleeve. It seems that the Emperor God won in the end. Someone sighed. Temph, Lu Ming is just a stepping stone for the Emperor God. The patriarch of the Wang clan snorted coldly. The more powerful Lu Ming was, the more unhappy he was. Lu Ming, I was planning to preserve some of my strength so that I could compete with the prodigies of the Central Continent and the other 3 regions in the future. Now, I'll let you have a taste. Whoosh! The Emperor God turned into a golden sword and slashed at Lu Ming. The Emperor God's heart was higher than the sky. His vision was no longer limited to the Eastern Barren Territory. He wanted to compete with the paragons of the Southern Underworld, Northern Plains, Western Desert, and even the Central Continent. Thus, he had been holding back. Do you think I don't have the means to do so? At this moment, Lu Ming was not panicking. Instead, he appeared very calm. There was even a hint of a smile at the corners of his mouth. Buzz. Inscriptions appeared on his body, and a battle of inscriptions appeared. All of them were support-type formations. Some increased speed, some increased defense, and some burst true energy. There were more than 10 arrays in total, causing Lu Ming's aura to soar. Bang! At the same time, Lu Ming took a step forward. Countless inscriptions appeared on the entire fighting ring and even in the air. A huge array emerged. This. Everyone was dumbfounded. Lu Ming had actually been secretly inscribing inscriptions during the previous battle. After more than 20 minutes of fighting, Lu Ming had inscribed a huge array. This point had been hidden from everyone. As Lu Ming had been using martial arts to fight his enemies, he had displayed unbelievably strong combat power in martial arts. This had caused everyone to overlook one thing: not only was Lu Ming a martial arts powerhouse, but his Tao of Inscription was also not weak. Chapter 976. 976, First Place, Stepping onto the Peak. At this moment, Lu Ming's sudden outburst reminded the others that Lu Ming not only cultivated martial arts but also the Tao of Inscription. Emperor God, you're the one who's defeated this time. Die! Lu Ming roared. He took a step forward and rushed toward Di Shen like the wind. At the same time, the formation on the fighting ring glowed. Long spears were formed one after another, emitting a terrifying aura. They pierced toward the Emperor God. In the previous battle with the Emperor God, although it was impossible to concentrate on carving the formation, how could it be weak after spending more than 20 minutes in the battle? In addition, with the various supplementary arrays, Lu Ming's combat strength had increased greatly. The Emperor God's eyes were extremely gloomy. He kept slashing out his sword, clashing with the long spear formed by the formation. Bang! Bang! Lu Ming stepped forward and struck the Emperor God's sword with his palm. The Emperor God trembled and retreated. Lu Ming strode forward and kept launching attacks. At the same time, the formation glowed and kept condensing long spears to attack the Emperor God. The Emperor God couldn't fight back and kept retreating. He was at a disadvantage. He had unleashed 3 types of concepts and his attack power was unparalleled. However, he was still no match for Lu Ming. Most importantly, his will of space was still at the complete stage of level 3, while the other 2 had reached level 4. It was difficult for him to unleash the full power of his will. He roared and fought with all his might, but he was still at a disadvantage. I'll let you have a taste of the prison-suppressing Steely. The prison-suppressing Steely appeared above Lu Ming's head. Lu Ming transformed into the prison-suppressing Steely and suppressed the Emperor God. The bloodline power of the 9 dragons had been used up, but the bloodline power of the prison-suppressing Steely was still there. The crowd was numb. Many people already knew that Lu Ming had 2 divine-level bloodlines, so they were not too shocked. Bang! The Emperor God was hit by the prison-suppressing Steely. His body trembled and he was knocked back. His face turned pale and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Suppress. The prison-suppressing Steely glowed and continued to suppress the Emperor God. The Emperor God's face was gloomy. He took a step forward and disappeared in an instant, reappearing in another place 100 meters away. The prison-suppressing Steely shook and continued to press down on the Emperor God. The Emperor God did not dare to take the attack head-on. He could only continue to use teleport, his figure constantly changing to avoid Lu Ming's attacks. This scene caused the expressions of the people from the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace to turn extremely ugly. In this way, the Emperor God was at a disadvantage. Once half an hour was up, the ancient city of Providence would automatically determine that the Emperor God had failed. Of course, this was still better than admitting defeat. If he admitted defeat, he would lose 90% of his fate value, while if he lost, he would only lose half of his fate value. Martial Emperor Di's face darkened. The destiny that he obtained in every battle of destiny was very important to him. However, it seemed like he was going to fail this time. The first place might fall to Lu Ming and the Talisman Amulet sect. God Emperor, weren't you very arrogant just now? Now you can only run away. Is this the number one on the list of top 1,000 talents? Lu Ming sneered and mocked. The Emperor God gritted his teeth, and the flames of anger in his eyes seemed to be burning. Lu Ming, I'll definitely kill you with my own hands in the future. Di's cold voice was heard. Ha, Di-shen, let me tell you. You've lost to me today, but you'll never be my match in the future. Lu Ming laughed heartily. The Emperor God clenched his fists so hard that his knuckles cracked. He was greatly shocked. This was because he had always been the one saying this to others in the past. In the past, he was ranked first on the list of top 1,000 talents. He was high and mighty with unparalleled talent. Anyone who was defeated by him would never be his opponent in the future, because he improved faster than others and the gap between him and the others would only grow wider. He had never thought that these words would come from someone else's mouth, and that the target would be him. However, he was helpless now. The power of his blood meridian had been exhausted and he could not block Lu Ming's attack at all. He could only use blink to dodge. Time passed quickly. Buzz. Suddenly, the fighting ring shook and two beams of light enveloped Lu Ming and the Emperor God. The time was up, and the two of them fought for a full half an hour. When the time was up, the battle ended. The prison-suppressing Steely shrunk rapidly and transformed into Lu Ming's appearance. Roar. The fate dragon above Lu Ming's head roared and gnawed at the fate dragon above Di-shen's head. In the end, it devoured half of Di-shen's fate. The Emperor God's fate was now more than 1,300 feet. On the other hand, Lu Ming's fate dragon expanded rapidly and finally exceeded 4,000 feet. The fate dragon, which was more than 4,000 feet long, floated above Lu Ming's head, just like a real dragon. Lu Ming won. Haha, Lu Ming is in first place. Fatty was the first to shout out in excitement. Lu Ming is first. Then, Bai Chishue, Wan Tingting, and the others also started to shout and cheer. Even Huan Zhan, Wen Jisha, and the others were extremely excited. I didn't expect Lu Ming to be so powerful. I'm not as good as him. Huan Zhan sighed, but he didn't look unhappy. Instead, his eyes were filled with joy. We were competing with Lu Ming before this. Ji Mai, Meng Jiao, and the others looked at each other and smiled bitterly. They felt a vague sense of pride in their hearts. They had been Lu Ming's opponents. At this moment, even Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, Meng Chong, and the others were extremely excited. Lu Ming had won first place and his fate dragon was more than 4,000 feet long. How shocking was this? There was no doubt that the Talisman sect was ranked first in the overall ranking of this Battle of Destiny. How many years had it been? Ever since Lian Kang's disappearance, the Talisman sect had been on a decline. They had never gotten first place before, but now they had gotten first place again. This time, the Talisman Amulet sect would definitely obtain great fortune. Perhaps, there was hope for its revival. How could they not be excited? In the past, the condition that they put forward to Lu Ming was for him to win first place in the Battle of Providence. However, in their hearts, no one actually thought that Lu Ming could do it. They were just giving him pressure. They did not expect that Lu Ming could really do it. As for the people from the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace, the Heavenly Corpse sect, and the Sky Demon Valley, they all had different expressions. But most of them were shocked. Before the Battle of Providence started, who would have guessed that Lu Ming would actually get first place? At that time, both the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace and the Heavenly Demon Valley wanted to kill Lu Ming. Most of them thought that Lu Ming was dead for sure. However, Lu Ming created a miracle later on and even defeated the Emperor God to win the first place. Damn it, how did this happen? The masters of the Wang and Jiang families were filled with killing intent as they roared in their hearts. Martial Emperor Di didn't say a word, but his eyes shot out a cold light. Hehe, this little guy is really unexpected. In the Sky Demon Valley, the Demon Emperor's charming voice made many people's hearts beat faster. It's indeed unexpected. The Corpse Emperor's ear-piercing voice was the complete opposite of the Demon Emperor's. The eyes of Ao2, Xue Jianyi, Feng Xian, and the others were filled with a shocking fighting spirit. They knew that from now on, they would have a powerful opponent on their way to rise. This opponent gave them immense pressure. At this moment, the light pillar that enveloped Lu Ming suddenly shone brightly. Then, a token appeared out of nowhere and descended from the sky, flying toward Lu Ming. Chapter 977. 977 Mixed Essence Token. A token suddenly appeared above the light pillar and flew toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming instinctively caught it. Mixed Energy Token. It's a mixed energy token. A cry of surprise came from the direction of the Sky Demon Valley, and it was the Demon Emperor. What matter could actually make a generation's Demon Emperor cry out in alarm? Bang! Bang! Then, the Corpse Emperor and Martial Emperor Dai stood up from their seats, with a terrifying light shooting out of their eyes. Many of the older generation seemed to have thought of something. His eyes were filled with shock. And many of the younger generation looked at each other, not knowing what was going on. What was a mixed essence token? How could he make the three emperors lose their composure? Lu Ming was extremely curious. He looked at the token in his hand. The token was purple gold in color and was cast from an unknown material. 2 words were written on it: Primordial Chaos. Congratulations on passing the initial test. Suddenly, a voice rang in Lu Ming's mind. This voice was directly heard in Lu Ming's mind. No one else could hear it. Who is it? Who are you? Lu Ming shouted in his heart. However, there was no response. Lu Ming continued to call, but there was still no reply. Lu Ming was extremely curious. What did that voice mean? After passing the initial test, could there be another test? Roar. At that moment, the true dragon of providence above Lu Ming's head roared and shrank rapidly, turning into a beam of light and entering Lu Ming's body, disappearing. At the same time, the serpents, dragons, and true dragons above the young heaven's favorites' heads all turned into beams of light and entered their bodies. At this moment, the ancient city of Providence trembled and burst out with a dazzling light. Some of them flew toward the people of the Sky Demon Valley. One of them entered the Demon Emperor's body. The Demon Emperor obtained the most. Another portion flew toward the Heavenly Corpse sect and landed on their disciples. Similarly, the Corpse Emperor obtained the most portion. The other portion, which was even brighter than the light from the Heavenly Corpse sect and the Sky Demon Valley, flew toward the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace. Die and Martial Emperor received the largest portion. However, the largest portion flew towards the Talisman Amulet sect. The Talisman sect's disciples, Bai Shijin, the 2 sect leaders of Du Songjue, the various elders, the 9 Sons Supreme, Yang Kuangtu, and so on, all received a big ball of light. Even Elder Yun of the Talisman Amulet sect had obtained more light than the Corpse Emperor or the Demon Emperor. The 9 Sons Supreme, Bai Shijin, and Du Songjue had received more light than Martial Emperor Die. The people from the other 3 factions looked at the Talisman Amulet sect with envy. This light was the legendary luck, which was extremely mysterious. At this moment, if one were to look from the outside of the ancient city of Providence, one would be able to see that the entire ancient city of Providence was glowing. Beams of light flew in all directions towards the eastern wilderness. Among them, the lights that flew towards the Talisman sect were the largest and most numerous. The speed of the light was unparalleled. It crossed layers of space in an instant and flew to the Talisman sect. At this moment, countless Talisman Amulet sect disciples were being nourished by the light. Some of them had encountered a bottleneck in their cultivation and had been stuck in a realm for many years. However, when this ray of light rushed through them, they actually broke through the bottleneck and broke through to a new realm. As for Lu Ming's parents, Lu Yuntian, Li Ping, and the rest of the Lu family, they were also shrouded in a large amount of light. Those who were close to Lu Ming would receive a lot of light. Countless people were stunned and confused. The Talisman sect members in the ancient city of Providence were ecstatic. This was the legendary blessing with luck, which was infinitely mysterious. I don't know what benefits there are. I'll go back and experience it, Lu Ming muttered. He felt that he was in high spirits and his thoughts were extremely clear. He could not feel anything else. Lu Ming took a step forward and returned to the Talisman sect's area. It was time to leave. The battle of karmic luck had ended. Lu Ming had finally achieved what he wanted to do. Bai Shijin, Du Songjue. Suddenly, a majestic voice was heard. Everyone was shocked because the voice came from Martial Emperor Di. Everyone looked at Martial Emperor Di. Bai Shijin and Du Songjue's expressions changed slightly, and they also looked at Martial Emperor Di. Martial Emperor Di's face was calm, but his eyes were sharp. He stared at Bai Shijin and Du Songjue and said, "You should know that Lu Ming is the person I want. Now, Lu Ming has helped your talisman amulet sect to win first place in the Battle of Providence. You have also benefited from it. Now, hand him over to me." His voice was filled with a sense of superiority and unquestionable authority. It was as if the other party had to do as he said. In fact, in the East Continent, not many people dared to refute the words of Martial Emperor Di. Everyone was shocked. Di was going to make trouble for the talisman sect. How should they deal with this? Should they hand Lu Ming over or not? At this moment, everyone's eyes were on Bai Shijin and Du Songjue. Bai Shijin and Du Songjue's faces darkened. Di, Martial Emperor, you said it yourself. Lu Ming helped my talisman amulet sect win the Battle of Providence and obtain great fortune. Do you think I, Bai Shijin, am an ungrateful person? Bai Shijin looked at Di and said slowly, "I, Du Song, have lived for thousands of years. I still have a bottom line. There is no room for discussion on this matter." Du Songjue spoke. The two sect leaders of the talisman sect rejected Di one after another. Martial Emperor Di frowned slightly. Two bright lights shot out of his eyes, and an unparalleled majesty spread out. You have to consider carefully. Is it worth it to sacrifice the entire talisman amulet sect for Lu Ming? Martial Emperor Di spoke slowly, but it shocked everyone. Was Martial Emperor Di going to attack the talisman amulet sect? In the past, the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace had only slowly encroached on the territory of the talisman amulet sect. Martial Emperor Di had never personally attacked the talisman amulet sect. Was he going to do it himself now? This was definitely a big event that would shake the Eastern Barren Territory and affect the future of the Eastern Barren Territory. Perhaps in the future, there would only be 3 overlords in the East Continent, not 4. I'll keep you company. Du Songjue responded strongly. Di, I don't mind telling you that Lu Ming is the Zongzi of the talisman sect. So, if Lu Ming is here, the talisman sect will die, Bai Shijin said. Everyone was shocked by his words. Lu Ming was actually the Zongzi of the talisman amulet sect. What did it mean to be a Zongzi? It meant that he was the future sect master of the talisman amulet sect. He was the person who would take over as the sect master of the talisman amulet sect. However, how could Lu Ming become the Zongzi of the talisman amulet sect? Even though he had won first place in the Battle of Providence. As Lu Ming had always been cultivating in the territory of the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace, it had not been long since he went to the talisman amulet sect. Lu Ming is the Zongzi of your talisman amulet sect. Martial Emperor Di frowned even more, and his eyes became colder. That's right. Di, listen well. Lu Ming is not only the Zongzi of the talisman sect, but he is also the inheritor of Grandmaster Liao Kang, Bai Shijin said, word for word. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,